Have you ever felt like a ghost in your own life, watching others shine while you fade into the background? Have you ever been the quiet one, the responsible one, only to realize that responsible actually meant expendable? Imagine a moment, a single, searing moment, when the scales fall from your eyes and you see the truth of your existence within your own family. It's a truth so cold, so sharp, it cuts deeper than any insult. It's the realization that you are not loved for who you are, but for what you can provide. And then, imagine the choice: to continue playing the part, to keep absorbing the pain, or to finally, irrevocably, walk away, to reclaim your spirit, your worth, and your very soul from the people who took it for granted. This isn't just a story about a car or a gift. It's about the silent scream of a soul pushed to its absolute limit, and the explosive, terrifying freedom that comes when you finally decide to bite back. If you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever been used, then this story is for you. Because sometimes the quiet ones have the loudest roar. I always thought my life was a quiet hum, a steady rhythm in the chaotic symphony of my family. My name is Alara, and for as long as I can remember, I was the anchor, the silent strength, the one who kept things from drifting too far off course. While my younger sister Lyra danced through life, a vibrant, sparkling comet, I was the steady star, always there, always reliable. She was the dazzling performer, the one who effortlessly commanded every spotlight, every laugh, every adoring glance from our parents. I, on the other hand, was the stagehand, meticulously ensuring the show went on, unnoticed, uncredited, but absolutely essential. I never asked for applause. I just wanted to be seen, truly seen, for the quiet devotion I poured into our family. I believed, deep down, that my unwavering support, my practical wisdom, my constant presence, would eventually earn me a place, a recognition that wasn't just about utility, but about love. That belief shattered into a million glittering pieces on a Christmas Eve that felt less like a celebration and more like a meticulously staged performance. Our family mansion, a sprawling testament to my father's ambition, was ablaze with lights, filled with the hollow echo of forced laughter and clinking glasses. 50 guests, a carefully curated audience of business partners, socialites, and distant relatives, mingled beneath a chandelier that dripped crystals like frozen tears. My father, a man whose charisma was as manufactured as his new money status, moved through the crowd, a conductor orchestrating his perfect illusion. My mother, a vision of expensive elegance, glided beside him, her smile a fixed, polished mask, ensuring every guest witnessed her impeccable hospitality. They were a flawless duo, a testament to the image they so desperately cultivated. Lyra, of course, was the radiant center of it all, her laughter bright and loud as she filmed an endless stream of stories for her online followers. Her fiancé, a man named Orion, by her side. Orion, with his old money charm and quiet indifference, was exactly the kind of son-in-law my parents worshipped, a symbol of the legacy they craved. I, the 30-year-old responsible daughter, stood near the appetizer table, trying to shrink into the shadows, my role as a bank compliance officer making me the boring one, the one who didn't fit the flashy narrative. My stable job, my careful savings, my quiet life, these were not things to be celebrated, but merely tolerated, a convenient background against which Lyra's brilliance could truly shine. The air crackled with anticipation as my father, a practiced showman, clinked his glass, his voice booming across the hushed room. My wife and I wanted to do something truly special this year, he announced, beaming at Lyra, who simpered, taking Orion's hand. Our precious Lyra is getting married in the spring, and we wanted to give her an early wedding present, something to show her how incredibly proud we are of the woman she has become. He snapped his fingers, and the front door swung open. A valet, almost reverently, pulled a gleaming white luxury car onto the circular driveway, an absurdly enormous red bow stuck to its hood. The car, all $80,000 of it, sat under the floodlights like a shrine, a testament to Lyra's perceived worth. Lyra shrieked, a sound high enough to shatter glass, throwing her arms around my father. "Daddy, you didn't!" she cried, her voice dripping with performative gratitude. Only the best for my princess, he declared, handing her the key fob, his eyes fixed on Orion's parents, ensuring they understood the message. We belong. We have this kind of money. The room erupted in applause, a wave of approval washing over my sister and her fiancé. Orion's father raised his glass, a subtle nod of acceptance. My mother, Brenda, was already dabbing at her eyes, a perfect portrait of maternal pride. She just deserves the world, she whispered to Orion's mother, who nodded politely, her expression unreadable. A familiar, cold dread settled in my stomach. I knew what was coming next. It always came next. The performance of generosity, the grand gesture for Lyra, always had to be balanced by the ritual of my humiliation. My father let the applause die down, then turned to me, his smile tightening, a predatory glint in his eyes. And of course, we couldn't forget our other daughter, our practical Ilara. He motioned toward the Christmas tree, and my mother, ever the dutiful accomplice, retrieved a small, brightly wrapped box. It felt impossibly light in my hands. I looked at my father, but his gaze had already drifted back to his audience, soaking in their attention. Go on, open it, he said dismissively, as if I were a child. I pulled off the ribbon. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a ceramic piggy bank. It was pink, adorned with cartoon flowers, something you'd buy for a 6-year-old. A few people near me chuckled nervously, clearly expecting this to be the prelude to a real gift, a substantial check perhaps. But then, my father delivered the punchline, his voice dripping with mock generosity. There's $100 inside to get you started, sweetheart. Lord knows you are just so good at saving. The room went dead silent. The nervous chuckles died. Orion's mother had a flicker of pity in her eyes, which was somehow worse than outright scorn. Then Lyra, my sister, broke the silence with a high-pitched, delighted laugh. Oh, Daddy, that's perfect. It's so true. Sister Ilara just loves to save. The blood rushed to my face. A searing wave of shame. 50 pairs of eyes watched me, a 30-year-old woman, holding a child's piggy bank, while my sister's brand-new luxury car idled in the driveway. It was a public execution of my spirit, a blatant declaration of my worthlessness in their eyes. I carefully placed the piggy bank on a nearby table. I didn't say a word. I couldn't. The words were choked in my throat, replaced by a burning, suffocating rage. I just turned and walked straight out of the room, heading for the kitchen, the swinging door muffling the sound of their fake laughter. I gripped the cold marble countertop, my knuckles turning white, my chest heaving. I just needed to breathe. 1, 2, 3. The humiliation felt like a physical weight, pressing down on my chest, hot and suffocating. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to banish the image of their mocking faces, the echo of Lyra's cruel laughter. But it clung to me, a sticky, poisonous shroud. Just when I thought I might suffocate, the kitchen door swung open again, hitting the wall with a soft thud. It was my mother, Brenda. She wasn't holding a glass of water. She wasn't coming to comfort me. Her face was tight with pure annoyance, her eyes sharp and cold. Ilara, what in the world do you think you're doing? She hissed, her voice a low, dangerous whisper. Don't you dare make that face. Don't you ruin your sister's night. Not tonight. I spun around, my hand still gripping the counter, the cold marble a grounding force against the storm inside me. Ruin her night, Mom? Did you see what just happened out there? He gave me a piggy bank in front of everyone. My voice was a raw, desperate whisper, laced with disbelief. Oh, stop being so dramatic, she snapped, pulling the kitchen door closed, sealing us in our private arena of conflict. Your father was just having a little fun. You've always been too sensitive. Fun? I whispered the word, tasting like ash in my mouth. That wasn't fun, Mom. That was humiliation. He called me out in front of his business partners and Orion's parents and our entire family, and treated me like a child. My mother waved her hand dismissively, as if swatting away a fly. Ilara, listen to me. This is a very important night for Lyra. The Hamiltons are here. Orion's parents are here. These are important people. Your sister is marrying into a legacy, and you are in here pouting about a joke. It wasn't a joke, I insisted, my voice rising, the anger finally breaking through the suffocating shame. It was a message. Lyra gets an $80,000 car and I get $100. That's the message. My mother's voice dripped with condescension. Be realistic, Alara. Your sister needs to look successful. She's an influencer. She's marrying Orion. She has an image to maintain. She looked me up and down, taking in my simple black dress, a silent judgment. You have your stable job at the bank. You're fine. You're practical. Your father got you a practical gift. It was an insult, Mom, and you stood there and you let him do it. The words were out before I could stop them, a lifetime of unspoken grievances bubbling to the surface. My mother stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. What I am doing, Alara, is making sure this family's future is secure. Lyra's marriage secures that future. Your little feelings are not the priority tonight. So, I need you to go back out there. Put a smile on your face and apologize to your father for making a scene. Apologize? The word caught in my throat, a bitter metallic taste. Apologize for what? For embarrassing him, and for embarrassing your sister in front of her new family. Now fix your face. You're upsetting the guests. A piggy bank, I finally said, the words sharp and low, cutting through the air. $100 piggy bank in front of 50 people, in front of his partners, in front of Orion's family. My mother crossed her arms, her face a mask of stone. I told you it was a joke. Your father has a strange sense of humor. That wasn't humor, Mom. That was a statement. He stood there and told a room full of people that my sister is worth an $80,000 car, and I am worth a piece of ceramic pottery with some pocket change. I shook my head, the absurdity of it making me feel dizzy, lightheaded with a sudden, terrifying clarity. Is that really it? After everything I do for this family, is that all I'm worth to you? $100 and a laugh? Now you're just feeling sorry for yourself. My mother scoffed, her voice laced with disdain. You need to stop thinking about you, Alara, and think about the family. Think about your sister. That's all I ever do. My voice was rising, and I didn't care. That's all anyone in this house ever does. Think about Lyra. Think about Dad's image. When does anyone ever think about me? My mother's voice was sharp, cutting through my anger. Be realistic, Alara. Your sister needs to look successful. She is marrying into an important family, a family with status. She has an image to maintain. She waved her hand vaguely in my direction, dismissing my entire existence. You're stable. You have your practical job. You're fine. I stared at her, the word stable hanging in the air, thick with a history of insults, of being overlooked, of being deemed enough, but never special. I let out a short, bitter laugh that sounded more like a choke. Stable, I repeated, my voice dangerously quiet, a tremor of something new, something fierce running through me. I'm stable. Is that what you call it? She recoiled slightly, not expecting me to fight back, not expecting the quiet, dependable Alara to finally bare her teeth. I'm stable. So I was the one who had to co-sign the refinancing on this very house when Dad's construction company almost went under last year. Is that it? When his credit was so shot that no bank would even look at him? My credit, my name, my stable job is the reason you're all standing in this house tonight, impressing Orion's family. My mother's face paled, the carefully constructed mask of annoyance cracking to reveal a flicker of fear. We do not discuss family finances, she hissed, her voice barely audible. Oh, we're discussing it now, I interrupted, the words tumbling out, a dam finally breaking. I'm stable, so I was the one who had to spend 2 days on the phone with Lyra's credit card company after she maxed out $20,000 on a work trip to Dubai. A trip, by the way. She put on a credit card that I also had to co-sign for her emergencies. I stepped closer to her, lowering my voice, but the intensity in my eyes was undeniable. I am the stable one, because my credit score is the only thing keeping this entire family from completely falling apart, while Lyra just gets to look pretty and get $80,000 cars. Is that what stable means in this family, Mom? It means I get the burdens and she gets the rewards. My mother's face hardened, her brief moment of panic replaced by familiar dismissal. She waved her hand, physically pushing my words away as if they were an unpleasant odor. That is family business, Alara, and not something we air in the kitchen like dirty laundry. Yes, you helped. That's what family does. She straightened her posture, looking down her nose at me, her voice laced with a cold superiority. You're good at those boring little papers. Lyra is special. She has a different purpose. You're just being jealous, and frankly, it's unbecoming. You should be happy for your sister, not tearing her down because of a silly gift. Jealous? The word echoed in the quiet kitchen, a final, stinging insult. That was the final push. I was done. I turned from my mother without another word and pushed open the swinging door. The party noise hit me again, the laughter and chatter sounding fake and hollow, a cruel mockery of joy. I walked straight through the living room, past the business partners, past Orion's parents, past all of them. I didn't look at anyone. I went to the front closet, grabbed my handbag, and pulled on my coat. My hands were shaking, but my mind was perfectly clear. I was leaving. I was done being the family's fool. I had my hand on the front doorknob when my father's voice boomed behind me, cutting through the superficial gaiety of the party. "And just where do you think you're going?" He was standing in the archway, his face a mask of displeasure, his eyes narrowed, radiating a silent fury. Guests were looking on, their conversations stopping, drawn into the unfolding drama. "The party isn't over. Your mother and I have guests." I turned to face him, my hand still on the knob, the cold metal a promise of freedom. "I'm leaving." "Leaving?" He scoffed, taking a step toward me, his voice laced with contempt. "Don't be ridiculous. Don't be so ungrateful. It was a joke gift, Alara. You always were too serious. Now take your coat off and stop making a scene. You're embarrassing your sister." "No," I said, my voice quiet but firm, a new strength emanating from deep within me. "I'm not embarrassing her. You are. You did this, and I'm not staying for one more second. You're going to walk out on your family on Christmas over a stupid joke? Don't be a child." He scoffed, but I could see a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. I pulled the door open. The cold winter air felt good on my burning face, a cleansing balm. "I'm going," I said, my voice clear and steady, "and I'm taking the BMW." The silence that followed was absolute, a vacuum of shock. Then Lyra shrieked from across the room, her voice piercing the sudden quiet. "What did you just say?" She rushed toward me, her face twisted in disbelief and rage. Orion right behind her, looking completely bewildered. "You can't take my car. That's my car. Daddy just gave it to me. You're insane. You're just jealous and you're trying to ruin my Christmas." She tried to grab my arm, her nails digging in, but I pulled my arm free from her grasp and looked at her, my expression perfectly calm. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. "Really, Lyra? Is it your car? Or is it my car? The one Dad bought 3 weeks ago." Lyra's angry tirade sputtered to a halt. "What? What are you talking about? Daddy just gave it to me. You're lying. You're just jealous." "Am I?" My voice was cold, precise, every word a carefully aimed dart. I wasn't the boring daughter anymore. I was the compliance officer. Or did Dad buy it by maxing out the home equity line of credit on this house, the HELOC that I had to co-sign for? Because your credit and Dad's credit are both absolute garbage. A new, shocked silence fell over the room. My mother's face went white. This was not part of the plan. I continued, my words landing like punches, each one a blow to their carefully constructed facade. The HELOC that I only agreed to co-sign for with a notarized agreement, I might add, that stated it was only to be used for emergency business expenses, specifically materials and payroll for the construction company. I looked past Lyra, directly at my father, who was frozen in the archway, his face a mask of dawning horror. I seem to recall the agreement specifying that any transaction over $10,000 required my explicit written approval. An $80,000 luxury car for Lyra's image doesn't seem like an emergency payroll expense to me, Dad. I let the words hang in the air, heavy with accusation. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? I'm a compliance officer. It's literally my job to find this exact kind of fraud. My father's face went from angry to a dangerous mottled purple. You ungrateful... He was speechless, caught in his own lie in front of all his important guests, his carefully crafted world crumbling around him. Orion, the fiancé, finally stepped forward, his polished old money demeanor gone, replaced by genuine confusion and suspicion. He wasn't looking at Lyra anymore. He was looking at my father. "Marcus?" Orion asked, his voice sharp, cutting through the stunned silence. "What is she talking about? A HELOC? I thought your company just landed that new city contract. I thought business was booming." He looked around the ostentatious room, then back at my father's panicked face. What is going on here? That is your car to give, isn't it? I ignored Lyra's gasp and my father's sputtering rage. I looked past them, past my mother, who was now frozen in horror, and focused directly on Orion. He was the only one in this equation who was still processing. The only one who didn't know the full truth. His confused and suspicious eyes met mine. "No, Orion, it's not," I said, my voice cutting through the tension, clear and unwavering. "It's not his car to give at all. You're wondering how a man whose company is clearly struggling can afford an $80,000 gift. He can't." My father finally found his voice, stepping toward me, his eyes blazing. "Elara, you be quiet." I held up a hand, never breaking eye contact with Orion. "Ask him for his credit score, Orion. Go ahead. Ask my mother for hers. I'll wait." I didn't. They can't get a loan for a bicycle, let alone a brand new luxury car. Their credit is completely shot. That's why I had to co-sign the HELOC on this house in the first place. I let that sink in, watching Orion's face shift from confusion to dawning comprehension, a slow, terrible realization. "So, no," I continued, my voice gaining strength. "My father couldn't buy this car. I bought this car. He used my credit. He used my name. He used my 810 FICO score. And he used my emergency line of credit to buy his golden child a status symbol. A status symbol he could then use to impress your family and pretend he's something he's not." I finally turned to my father, my gaze unwavering. "You didn't just break our legal agreement, Dad. You committed fraud. You used my name and my credit on a loan application for an $80,000 depreciating asset without my consent. That's bank fraud," Orion said, his voice flat, no longer asking, but stating a fact. He finally looked away from me and back to my father, his expression now ice cold. "Marcus, is what she's saying true?" I didn't wait for an answer. I turned my back on Orion, on my father's sputtering rage, and walked out the front door. The cold December air felt incredible, cutting through the suffocating atmosphere of the house, a breath of pure, unadulterated freedom. I walked directly toward the gleaming white luxury car, its ridiculous red bow seeming to mock their shattered illusions. The front door burst open behind me. "Elara, get back here!" my father roared, his voice cracking with fury. "You ungrateful little witch! You're not taking that car!" Lyra was right behind him, shrieking, her voice shattering the quiet suburban night. "She's stealing my car, Daddy! Stop her, Orion! She's stealing my car!" My mother followed them onto the porch, wringing her hands, her voice a desperate whine. "Elara, please. Think of the neighbors. Think of the Hamiltons. What will people think?" Inside the house, the party had come to a complete halt. I could see faces pressed against the living room windows, the business partners, the socialites, all of my parents' important friends, their mouths open, watching the perfect Washington family implode on their perfectly manicured lawn. Orion followed them onto the driveway, his face pale and grim. He looked at the car, then at me, then back at my father, who was visibly trembling with rage. "Marcus," Orion said again, his voice dangerously calm, cutting right through Lyra's sobs. "I'm going to ask you one more time. Is that car yours?" My father sputtered, unable to form a coherent sentence. "Of course it's a family car. She's just being hysterical. She's making a scene." "That's not what I asked," Orion said, his eyes narrowing, a dangerous glint in their depths. "You told my parents you bought this car outright. You said it was a sign of your company's stability. You used it as proof that our impending family merger was financially sound." Lyra, hearing this, stopped crying abruptly, her eyes widening in a new kind of panic. "Daddy, what is he talking about? A loan! You said the car was paid for!" Orion's gaze was fixed on my father, unwavering. "Now, is what your daughter said true? Did you use her credit to secure this vehicle?" My father looked trapped, glancing between me, his hysterical golden child, and his ice-cold future son-in-law. It's just a temporary financing issue," he stammered, his voice weak. "A cash flow problem. It's not what it looks like." I didn't answer Orion's question. I let my father stammer, let him dig his own grave. Instead, I pressed the unlock button on the key fob. The luxury car chimed softly, its interior lights glowing, a silent invitation. I opened the driver's side door and slid into the plush leather seat. The new car smell was overwhelming, a potent aroma of betrayal and liberation. From the driver's seat, I looked calmly at Orion, who was still staring at my father, waiting for an answer. "You don't have to wait for him to lie again, Orion," I said, my voice carrying clearly in the cold night air. "Just ask him to show you the title. Ask him for the registration paperwork or the loan documents." I paused, then delivered the final crushing blow. "Oh wait, he can't, because all of it, every single legal document is in my name. Elara Alexandria Vance. My social security number, my credit, my problem." I put the key in the ignition. My father lunged at the car, his face contorted in pure rage. He yanked on the door handle, but I had already locked it. "Elara, you get out of that car right now," he bellowed, pounding his fist on the window. "That is a family asset. You don't just take it. Get out." Lyra was sobbing hysterically, pulling on Orion's arm. "Orion, do something. Stop her. She's stealing my wedding present. She's ruining everything." My mother was just standing on the porch, frozen, her hand over her mouth, finally realizing this was not a scene she could control, not a performance she could direct. My father pounded on the glass again, his eyes wild, desperate. "I am warning you, Elara. You drive that car off this property and you are done. You are no longer my daughter. Do you hear me? You are out." I looked at him, at the man who had just threatened to disown me over a car he had fraudulently purchased in my name. I felt nothing. No fear, no sadness, just an empty, profound sense of finality. I put the key in the ignition, and the engine purred to life, a deep, smooth hum that was the only sound in the sudden silence. My father's face, pressed near the glass, was a mask of disbelief. "You're out," he repeated, his voice lower now, almost trembling, the threat losing its power. "You are no longer a part of this family." I looked at him, truly saw him for the first time, not as a father to be feared, but as a desperate, trapped man, his empire of lies crumbling before his eyes. I put the car into reverse. "It's my asset, Dad," I said, my voice coming out clear and strong, the backup camera lighting up, showing my mother and sister frozen in horror on the driveway. "Merry Christmas." I didn't wait for his reaction. I turned the wheel, backed out of the circular driveway, and left them standing there, a perfect, shattered family, illuminated by the garish Christmas lights and the white headlights of my new luxury car. I could see them in my rearview mirror as I turned onto the main road. My father, Marcus, finally realizing he had lost, his arms hanging uselessly at his sides. My mother, Brenda, had collapsed onto the steps, her hands covering her face. And Lyra, my golden child sister, was screaming, her mouth a dark O of rage under the porch light. Orion, her fiancé, was standing apart from them, just watching, his expression unreadable, a silent witness to the implosion. I drove. I didn't know where I was going at first, just away. Away from that house, away from that city, away from the 30 years of being made to feel small, insignificant, a mere tool in their grand illusion. I drove for hours, the adrenaline turning into a bone-deep, shaking exhaustion, but beneath it, a nascent sense of peace began to stir. The scene cut. It was 3 a.m. I was sitting on the floor of my best friend Maya's apartment in a city 4 hours away, a half-empty mug of cold tea beside me. Maya was asleep on the couch, having given me her bed, her quiet presence a balm to my frayed nerves. My phone, which I'd set to silent an hour ago, was lit up with notifications. 47 missed calls, 82 text messages. They ranged from my mother's tearful pleading to my father's furious threats to Lyra's incoherent, typo-filled rage. My hand was shaking as I opened my contact list. Marcus Vance block, Brenda Vance block, Lyra Vance block. I turned the phone off completely and tossed it onto the rug. For the first time in my life, there was silence. A profound, liberating silence. I was free. I sat on Maya's worn-out, comfortable sofa, a floral mug of chamomile tea cradled in my shaking hands. The steam warmed my face, but I couldn't stop shivering, the lingering chill of the night, and the emotional storm I had just weathered clinging to me. It was 3:30 in the morning, and the bright, garish lights of the party felt like a lifetime ago, a distant, unpleasant dream. "Maya, what did I just do?" I whispered, staring into the mug, the words barely audible. I stole a car. I stole my sister's Christmas present and drove across state lines. Maya stirred, then sat up, crossing her legs in her oversized college sweatshirt. She wasn't my family by blood, but she was better. She was my friend, my chosen sister, the one who saw me, truly saw me, even when I couldn't see myself. She shook her head, her expression firm, her eyes filled with the certainty I desperately needed. "No, Alara, you did not steal anything," she said, her voice a steady anchor in my swirling fear. "You drove your car, the car your father bought using your credit, a car that is legally in your name. You just claimed your property." "But I did it in front of everyone," I said, the scene replaying in my mind, a tormenting loop. The shocked faces, my mother's collapse, Lyra's piercing scream. I humiliated them. I humiliated my father. Maya leaned forward, her eyes sharp, cutting through my self-doubt. "And what did he do to you? He gave you a child's toy in front of your sister's rich new family. He humiliated you, Alara. He's been doing it your whole life. The only difference is this time you didn't just sit there and take it. You took your keys and you left. That wasn't humiliation, Alara. That was consequences." I knew she was right, intellectually, but the fear was a cold, hard knot in my stomach, a primal dread that had been ingrained in me since childhood. "You don't know him, Maya. He won't let this go. He'll find a way to punish me for this. He'll ruin me." "Let him try," Maya said fiercely, her voice unwavering. "You have the law on your side. You have your name on the title." I looked at my phone, dark and silent on the coffee table. I had blocked all of them as soon as I'd crossed the state line, a 3-hour drive of pure adrenaline-fueled panic. But now, in the quiet, comforting sanctuary of Maya's apartment, a morbid curiosity began to creep in, a dark whisper in the back of my mind. What were they saying? How bad was the fallout? My hand trembled as I reached for the phone, a magnetic pull I couldn't resist. I have to see. I have to know what they're saying. "Alara, you don't have to," Maya said, her voice gentle, but I was already unlocking the screen, my fingers flying to my contact list. Marcus Vance. I pressed unblock. The second I did, my phone exploded. It was like a digital dam breaking, a flood of notifications, dozens and dozens streaming down the screen, a relentless assault. "Oh my God," I whispered, my eyes widening in horror. 47 missed calls, Maya. In 3 hours. From him, from my mom, from Lyra. 82 text messages. I scrolled through the lock screen, a blur of rage and desperation. "You are a thief, Alara. How could you do this to your sister? Mom is devastated. You are sick. You will pay for this." Then I saw it. A new notification had just appeared at the top. New voicemail from Marcus Vance. My fingers trembled as I pressed the voicemail icon. Maya watched me, her expression tight with worry, her hand instinctively reaching for mine. The speaker on my phone crackled to life, and then his voice filled the silent apartment. It wasn't the booming public rage from the driveway. It was worse. It was a cold, quiet, venomous whisper, a chilling prelude to his true intent. Alara Alexandria Vance. He used my full name. He always did that right before the worst of it, right before he delivered a blow designed to shatter my spirit. "I don't know what kind of stupid, childish game you think you're playing. I don't know who you think you are. You have 24 hours to return that car to my driveway. Not 24 hours and 1 minute. 24 hours. The line was silent for a beat, just the sound of his heavy, controlled breathing, a sinister pause. "If that car is not here, I will personally call the city police department, and I will report it stolen. I will tell them my unstable, vindictive daughter, who has a history of erratic behavior, stole an $80,000 vehicle. Do you understand me? Don't test me, Alara." My stomach turned to ice, a cold dread spreading through my veins. Maya's eyes widened, and she put her hand over her mouth, a silent gasp of horror. His voice came back, even colder, laced with a chilling contempt. "You didn't just take a car. You embarrassed me. You embarrassed your sister. You did that in front of the Hamiltons, in front of Orion. You think I'm going to let you get away with that? You think I'm going to let my practical little compliance officer daughter torpedo my family's future?" He laughed, a short, ugly sound, devoid of humor. "You're a tool, Alara. A signature. That's all you've ever been. You were useful for my credit. and now you've decided to be a problem. That's a mistake. A very, very big mistake. Another pause, pregnant with unspoken threats. I will ruin that little job you're so proud of. Do you think your bank wants a thief on their payroll? I will destroy that 810 credit score you think makes you so smart. I will drag you through the mud until you are begging me to stop. You are nothing without this family. You are nothing without me. 24 hours, Alara. The clock is ticking. You'd better hope you get back to the city before I do. The voicemail ended. The phone slipped from my fingers and clattered onto the hardwood floor. The silence in the room suddenly deafening, heavier than any sound. Alara, Maya whispered, her face pale, her voice barely a breath. He wouldn't really do that, would he? Report his own daughter for stealing a car that's in her name. I looked at her, the blood draining from my face, my hands feeling numb, disconnected from my body. You don't know him, I whispered, the words catching in my throat. It's not about the car. It's about his reputation. It's about the fact that I defied him. He will do it. He will absolutely do it. He'll destroy me just to prove he can. I started shaking, a deep, uncontrollable tremor that rattled the teacup against my teeth. Oh God, Maya, he's going to do it. Maya looked horrified, her eyes wide with disbelief. Alara, he can't. The car is in your name. The police will just laugh at him. It's a civil matter, not a criminal one. You don't understand, I said, standing up and beginning to pace her small living room, my mind racing, a whirlwind of fear and desperate calculations. You don't know him. It's not about the car. It's about his reputation. It's about the Hamiltons. It's about the fact that I, the boring daughter, challenged him in front of his important friends. I looked at Maya, my eyes wide with terror, the full weight of my father's vindictiveness crashing down on me. He will absolutely do it. He will report me. He will tell them I'm unstable. He'll show them the piggy bank and say I had a mental breakdown. He'll lie. He'll say I agreed to it and then snapped. And the police will arrest me first and ask questions later. He doesn't care about the truth. He only cares about winning. I was breathing fast now, the small room feeling too confined, too suffocating. He did this to his old business partner, David. When they had a disagreement, my dad anonymously reported him to the tax authorities. He destroyed that man's life just because he felt disrespected. He will burn me to the ground, Maya. He will see me in jail before he lets me be the one who's right. I have to do something. I have to call someone. My hands fumbled as I grabbed my phone again, my mind latching onto the only person who could help, the only one who understood the intricate dance of law and power. My lawyer. I have to call my lawyer. She'll know what to do. I found Letitia's name in my contacts and pressed call, my heart hammering against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of fear. It rang once, twice, 3 times, then clicked to her professional voicemail. Of course, it was almost 4 a.m. Hi, you've reached Letitia James, her smooth recorded voice said, calm and reassuring even in its automated form. Please leave a message. The beep sounded, and I just started talking, the words pouring out in a panicked rush, a torrent of fear and desperation. Letitia, it's Alara. Alara Vance. I am so sorry to call this late, but I'm in serious trouble. My father, he's threatening me. He's going to report the luxury car stolen, the one I told you about, the one he bought in my name. He says he's going to call the police and say I stole it. He's lying. He's trying to ruin me because I exposed him. Please, please call me as soon as you get this. I'm in Nashville at my friend's house. I don't know what to do. He gave me a 24-hour deadline. Please help me. I hung up, my entire body trembling, the phone feeling heavy and cold in my hand. The first hint of dawn was starting to gray the window, a faint promise of light, but I felt like my world was just about to end, plunging into an eternal darkness. I didn't sleep. I just sat on Maya's sofa, watching the sunrise, a silent, terrified vigil, my phone clutched in my hand, waiting for a lifeline. At exactly 8 a.m., it rang. I jumped, fumbling the call, my heart leaping into my throat. Hello? Alara. It's Letitia James. I got your message. Are you safe right now? Her voice was calm, professional, and instantly grounding, a steady hand reaching out to pull me from the abyss of my panic. Yes, I breathed, the single word a desperate plea for reassurance. I'm at my friend's house in Nashville. Letitia, he's going to report the car stolen. He said he'd ruin me. Okay, first, Letitia said, her voice cutting through my panic with surgical precision. Take a deep breath. He's trying to scare you. He's not going to have you arrested for theft. He can't. But he said he'd lie, I interrupted, the fear still clawing at my throat. Letitia, she said, her tone firm. The car is titled and registered in your name. The loan is tied to your credit. You cannot steal something you legally own. Period. If he calls the local police, they will tell him exactly that, and then hang up on him. I felt a small, fragile wave of relief wash over me, a tiny crack in the wall of my terror. But Letitia quickly followed up, her voice taking on a more serious tone. But that's not his real threat, Alara. The criminal complaint is just him blowing smoke to bully you. His real play is civil court, and that's where things get messy. My stomach tightened again, the brief respite from fear vanishing. What do you mean? He's going to sue you, Letitia explained, her tone practical, devoid of emotion. He will file a civil suit claiming you had a verbal agreement to purchase the vehicle for the family using the family's line of credit. He'll claim you were just a vessel for the loan. He'll say you agreed to transfer the title to Lyra after the purchase. Then he'll say that in a fit of jealousy, you violated that agreement and took the car. But that's not true. I never agreed to that, I cried, my voice rising in indignation. I know, Letitia said, her voice calm. But who will the judge believe? It becomes a very public, very ugly, he said, she said case. It'll be your word against the testimony of your father, your mother, and your sister. All three of them will swear on a Bible that you agreed to this. A judge might just split the baby and force a sale of the car, splitting the proceeds. It's a mess you don't want. I took a deep breath, the panic beginning to recede, replaced by a cold, precise calm, the kind I felt at work when I found an irregularity in a complex financial report. My professional brain, the one that thrived on facts and rules, was slowly taking over. Not exactly, Letitia. There was a pause on her end, a beat of surprised silence. What do you mean? Not exactly. When I co-signed that home equity line of credit 2 years ago, I began, my voice gaining strength, the memory of my father's past financial recklessness crystal clear in my mind. I knew exactly who my father was. I knew he was impulsive and financially irresponsible, so I made him sign a document. Letitia's voice sharpened, full of immediate interest. A hunter scenting prey. What kind of document? I drafted it myself, I said, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touching my lips. I called it a HELOC usage agreement. We both signed it. It's notarized. I heard the sound of a pen scribbling on a legal pad over the phone, a satisfying confirmation that I had just shifted the entire landscape of this battle. Alara, tell me exactly what that agreement says. It explicitly states that the line of credit is only to be used for documented emergency business expenses for Vance Construction, specifically raw materials or payroll, and only if the primary business accounts were unavailable. It also states that any draw over $10,000 requires my prior written approval, via certified mail or verified email. The line was silent for a moment. Then I heard Letitia let out a slow, appreciative laugh. It wasn't a laugh of humor. It was a laugh of pure professional admiration, a recognition of a meticulously laid trap. Alara, you are a compliance officer down to your bones, aren't you? You didn't just bring a knife to a gunfight. You brought the entire U.S. legal code. She was all business now, her voice energized, a new fire in her tone. Email me that scan now. I'm canceling my 9:01 a.m. meeting. This is much more important. We are going to draft a cease and desist letter that will make his head spin. He wanted to threaten you with the police? Fine. Let's see how he likes a threat from the Bar Association. I immediately went to my email and pulled up the scanned PDF of the agreement. I read the key clauses out loud to Letitia, my voice gaining strength with every word, every clause a nail in my father's coffin of lies. Here it is. Section 4. Subsection B. The home equity line of credit is to be utilized only for documented, verifiable, non-payroll emergency business expenses related directly to Vance Construction, LLC. It specifically cites raw material shortages or critical equipment failure. I took a breath and continued, the words flowing with a newfound power. Section 5, Subsection A. The HELOC is explicitly restricted from use for any personal expenses, capital for new non-approved investments, or any form of vehicle purchase. I put that in there specifically because I knew he'd try it. You are brilliant, Letitia whispered over the line, a genuine awe in her voice. It gets better, I said, scrolling down, a triumphant smile now firmly on my face. Section 6. Any single draw for any reason exceeding the sum of $10,000 requires prior written authorization from the secondary signer, Ilara Alexandria Vance, delivered with a wet signature and a notarized statement of purpose at least 72 business hours before the transaction. And did he get that written authorization, Ilara? Letitia asked, and I could hear the smile in her voice. A shared victory. He didn't even send me a text, I said, the last vestiges of fear replaced by a cold, hard resolve. He just took the full $80,000 in one lump sum. He knew the HELOC was tied to my bank account, so I'd get the alert. He just didn't care. He thought I'd be too scared or too embarrassed to fight him on it. He thought he could just bully me like he always does. I leaned back, finally feeling a sliver of power, a sense of control I hadn't felt in years. He didn't just breach the agreement, Letitia. He shattered it. He used my credit, in my name, to buy a car for my sister in direct violation of a notarized contract. That is the civil case. The line was silent for a moment. Then I heard Letitia let out a slow, appreciative laugh again. It wasn't a laugh of humor. It was a laugh of pure professional admiration, a sound that resonated deep within my soul. Ilara, she said, her voice full of a new, profound respect. When you told me you worked in compliance, I was thinking you just checked boxes and filed paperwork. I was wrong. You didn't just protect yourself. You set a perfect legal trap. She was all business again, her voice sharp and decisive. Now he has no case. Zero. He can't claim verbal agreement because this written contract explicitly forbids exactly what he did. He can't claim it was a family misunderstanding because the terms are specific to his business. Ilara, you didn't just win the civil argument. You've given me grounds to file for damages and report him for fraud on his own. Get me that scan, she ordered, her voice energized. A battle cry. Right now. I'm canceling my 9 a.m. meeting. This is much more important. We are going to draft a cease and desist letter that will make his head spin. He wanted to threaten you with the police? Fine. Let's see how he likes a threat from the Bar Association. I emailed Letitia the notarized PDF, the digital document a silent weapon in my hands. 2 days passed in a blur of anxious silence. I stayed with Maya, hiding out, checking my email every 5 minutes, every ping of my phone sending a jolt of adrenaline through me. Letitia had sent the cease and desist letter, and now we were just waiting, suspended in a tense limbo. Maybe he's scared, Maya said, trying to be optimistic, her voice a gentle balm against my gnawing anxiety. Maybe Letitia's letter actually worked. You don't know my father, I replied, pacing the living room, the words a bitter truth. He doesn't get scared. He gets even. The pounding started on Wednesday afternoon. It wasn't a knock. It was a heavy, violent pounding that shook the entire apartment, rattling the pictures on Maya's wall, a physical manifestation of my father's rage. Ilara, open this door. I know you're in there. My father's voice, muffled but unmistakable in its fury, pierced through the flimsy barrier. Maya ran to the door, her eyes wide with fear. Mr. Vance, you can't just open the damn door, Ilara. I am not playing games. The pounding got louder, more frantic, sounding like he was using his entire fist, a desperate animalistic assault. I'm calling the police, Maya whispered, fumbling for her phone, her hands shaking. Before she could dial, my father shoved the door. The flimsy security chain snapped, the metal piece flying across the room and hitting the wall with a crack. The door slammed open. My father burst into the apartment, his face a dark shade of purple I had only seen a few times in my life, a terrifying mask of uncontrolled rage. Right behind him were my mother and Lyra, a unified front of entitlement and fury, pushing past a stunned Maya as if she didn't exist, their eyes fixed on me. Before my father could even speak, my mother, Brenda, unleashed her performance. She hadn't been in Maya's tiny apartment for 30 seconds before she burst into loud theatrical sobs, a practiced display of distress. She pulled a monogrammed handkerchief from her purse and dabbed at her perfectly dry eyes, her voice carrying for the whole hallway to hear. Ilara, how could you do this? She wailed, her voice a shrill, piercing sound. How could you do this to your family? To your sister? I just stood there, my back against the kitchen counter. my heart hammering against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of defiance. "Do you know the humiliation?" she cried, stepping toward me, her voice dripping with self-pity. "The Hamiltons are asking questions. Orion's mother called me this morning, asking if there was some financial trouble. She was so polite, so condescending. I've never been so embarrassed in my entire life." She clutched her pearls, a perfect picture of a suffering matriarch, her performance flawless. "You are ruining everything, Alara. Everything we've worked for. Your sister's wedding, her future. It's all in jeopardy because you had to throw a childish tantrum over a Christmas present." "A present?" I said, my voice barely a whisper, the irony a bitter taste in my mouth. "Mom, he committed. I don't care what you think he did," she shrieked, cutting me off, her eyes blazing with a desperate fury. "You have to fix this. You have to call the Hamiltons and apologize. You have to tell them you were confused, that you made a mistake, and you have to give that car back. You are going to give that luxury car back to your sister right now, and you are going to beg her for forgiveness." My father shoved my mother aside, stepping so close I could smell the expensive cologne he wore, his presence overwhelming. "You think that little piece of paper your cut-rate lawyer sent means anything?" he sneered, his voice a low, dangerous growl. "You think that stops me?" "It's a notarized contract," I said, my voice shaking, but I held my ground, my gaze unwavering. "It's nothing," he roared, slamming his hand on Maya's kitchen counter, the sound echoing through the small apartment. "It's a piece of paper you tricked me into signing. You want to play law? Fine. Let's play. You sign that car over, or I will countersue you into oblivion. I will take you to court for every single penny I have ever spent on you. We'll start with your private school tuition. We'll add in your food, your clothes, the roof over your head for 18 years. I will tally up every dollar, Alara. And I will see you bankrupt and living on the street. You will wish I'd only reported the car stolen." He leaned in closer, his eyes bulging, his face contorted with a terrifying rage. "You think you're smart? You're a child playing a game you can't win. I own you. I paid for your entire life, and I can take it all back. You will have nothing. You will be nothing. Now give me the keys." I didn't flinch. I let the silence stretch, watching his chest heave with his own anger, his threats hollow and empty. My fear was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity, a sudden, profound understanding of the game he was playing. "My tuition?" I asked, my voice suddenly calm, cutting through the tension like a razor. He looked startled, not expecting my quiet tone, not expecting me to challenge his carefully constructed narrative. "You didn't pay a dime for my college education," I stated, not as an accusation, but as a simple, undeniable fact. I earned the Hope Scholarship, which covered 90%, and I worked 2 jobs, one at the campus library and one waiting tables at a diner, to pay for my books, my fees, and my rent. "You didn't pay for my food. You didn't pay for my clothes. You told me, and I quote, my education was a bad investment, and I was on my own. So no, Dad, you're not going to sue me for anything because you've never given me anything." I took a step toward the door he had broken, my voice gaining strength, each word a declaration of independence. "And unlike you, I actually know the law. You are in my friend's apartment. You just broke her door, which is destruction of property. You are screaming and threatening me, which is harassment. And you are refusing to leave, which is trespassing." I held up my phone, the screen a silent, powerful threat. "You have 60 seconds to get out of this apartment. You, Mom, and Lyra. If you are not gone, I am calling the local police, and I will press charges." My threat hung in the air, heavy and final, a chilling pronouncement. My father and mother were frozen, shocked by my coldness and my legal accuracy. They had no counter-argument. They were, for the first time, powerless, their usual tactics rendered useless. But Lyra was different. She wasn't processing the legal threat. She was processing her loss, the crumbling of her perfect world. "No," she whispered, her voice cracking, a raw, desperate sound. "No, you can't." She lunged forward, not at me, but grabbing my arm, her perfectly manicured nails digging into my coat, all the rage gone, replaced by a raw, terrifying panic. "Alara, please," she sobbed, her words tumbling out in a desperate torrent. "Please, you don't understand. You can't. Please, I need that car." "Need it, Lyra," I said, pulling my arm away, my voice devoid of emotion. "Or want it." "No, I need it," she shrieked, her eyes wild, desperate. "You don't get it. It's not just a car. It's Orion." She was hysterical now, grabbing her own hair, her rage and panic now directed at my father. "Daddy told him. He told the Hamiltons. He promised them." She whipped back to me, her eyes wild with a fear that was deeper than just losing a present, a fear that spoke of a future unraveling. "Alara, please, you don't understand. Dad told Orion that the luxury car was part of my dowry. He told the Hamiltons it was a symbol of our family's wealth, proof that the construction company was a stable asset to merge with their family. If I don't have that car, Orion will know. He'll know all of it was a lie. He'll leave me. Alara, please. You can't take my future. You can't." And there it was. The truth laid bare in Lyra's desperate confession. It was never just a gift. It was a prop. It was a lie built on my credit to secure my sister's place in a family that valued wealth above all else. And my father had just been caught, his entire house of cards teetering on the brink of collapse. I left Nashville the next day, driving the luxury car back to my own apartment in the city. I had the locks changed immediately. Maya's support had been a life raft, but I couldn't hide in her apartment forever. I needed to get back to my life. I needed to get back to my job. Work was my sanctuary. It was the one place where Alara Vance meant competence, respect, and authority. It was the one place where I was in control, where my family's chaotic drama couldn't touch me, or so I thought. I'd been back at my desk for less than 3 hours on Monday morning, trying to bury myself in regulatory reports and ignore the vibration of my still-blocked phone, when an instant message popped up from my boss, Mr. Sterling. "Alara, can you come to my office now, please?" My stomach tightened instantly. Now was never good. Mr. Sterling was a fair, no-nonsense man who respected my work. He wasn't one for casual chats. I grabbed my notepad, smoothed my blouse, and walked the short distance to his glass-walled corner office. "Shut the door," he said as I entered. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring at his monitor, his expression grim. I sat down, my heart starting to hammer, a premonition of impending doom. "Is everything okay, Mr. Sterling?" He sighed, a heavy, weary sound, and finally turned to look at me, his gaze serious. "Alara, you're one of my best officers. You know our compliance systems better than anyone, inside and out. So, I need you to look at this, and I need you to be objective, which I know might be difficult given the circumstances." He swiveled his monitor toward me. On the screen was a high-priority compliance alert, a red flag notification, screaming danger. I leaned in, my eyes scanning the data, my professional brain kicking into gear. "A returned payment?" I asked, confused. "From a business account. Why is this a high-priority flag?" "Look at the account, Alara," Mr. Sterling said quietly, his voice grave. I followed the transaction codes. The payee was a luxury car dealership. The payer account was Vance Construction, my father's company. My breath caught in my throat. A sudden chilling realization. "He tried to make a payment this morning," Mr. Sterling said, watching me carefully. "The check was for $80,000. It was returned for non-sufficient funds. That's bad enough, but that's not the problem." He clicked another screen, pulling up the account details, his finger hovering over a specific number. "The problem, Alara, is the account he tried to draw from. It's not his primary operating account." He highlighted the account number. I stared at it, the blood draining from my face as I recognized the identifier, a cold dread washing over me. "That's," I whispered, my professional brain taking over, pushing aside the personal horror. "That's an escrow account." "Specifically," Mr. Sterling said, his voice now like ice, each word a hammer blow. "It's the escrow account for the Sterling project." He paused, letting the words sink in, letting the full weight of the revelation crush me. He tried to pay for a luxury car using his client's money. I just stared at the screen, the room suddenly feeling very cold, the air thin and suffocating. This wasn't just him being a bad father. This wasn't just family drama. He didn't just try to pay for a car. "Alara," Mr. Sterling said, his voice grim, "he just committed bank fraud. And because he did it using our system, We are now legally obligated to report it. I stared at the screen, the room suddenly feeling very cold. The professional part of my brain, the compliance officer taking over, pushing aside the personal horror that threatened to overwhelm me. The Sterling Project, I read, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. That's his biggest contract. If he's dipping into their escrow, he's dipping. Mr. Sterling confirmed, his face tight, his gaze unwavering. The check was for exactly $80,000, routed to the luxury car dealership. The system flagged it not just for the non-sufficient funds, but for the account type. An escrow account is not a personal checking account, Alara. You and I know it's a client's trust fund. You never touch it for personal expenses. It's one of the brightest red lines in finance. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples, a weary sigh escaping his lips. He tried to use client money to pay for the car he bought on your credit. The full picture was horrifyingly clear, a mosaic of deceit and desperation. My father wasn't just financially irresponsible. He was a criminal. He had used me to acquire the fraudulent asset, and when that failed, he tried to pay for it by stealing from a client. This is, I started, but I couldn't find the word. The enormity of his actions too vast to comprehend. A felony, Mr. Sterling supplied, his voice grim. Several, actually. Bank fraud, wire fraud, embezzlement, misappropriation of client funds. Take your pick. The man is looking at serious federal time if this is what it looks like. He watched me carefully, his professional demeanor softening just a fraction, a hint of human empathy in his eyes. I'm not blind, Alara. I know he's your father, and I know you've had a difficult relationship. I just nodded, my throat too tight to speak, the words caught in a painful knot. But this has now crossed a line from a messy family dispute, which frankly is none of my business, into a major legal and compliance issue for this bank. We are legally mandated reporters. He let that sink in. The weight of it was crushing, a monumental burden placed squarely on my shoulders. My father, Marcus Vance, the man who built his entire identity on success and reputation, had just handed me the gun to shoot him, and the law was demanding I pull the trigger. This is what he threatened me with, I whispered, the irony burning like acid in my throat. He threatened to report me for theft. He was projecting. He was the real thief all along. Mr. Sterling nodded grimly. It appears so. He was trying to cover the $80,000 draw he took from your HELOC, and in his panic, he committed an even bigger crime. This is what we call desperation. He's in serious, serious trouble, Alara. Far beyond a family fight over a car. Mr. Sterling sighed, his gaze softening further, a rare moment of vulnerability. Alara, because this is your father, and because I respect your work immensely, I'm going to give you a courtesy that I would not give to anyone else. I looked up, my heart pounding, a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I have a legal obligation to report this to the federal regulators, but the system flagged it for my review first. I haven't escalated it yet. He steepled his fingers, looking me dead in the eye, his expression unyielding. You have 24 hours until 9 a.m. tomorrow. You need to find out if this was some catastrophic billion-to-one accounting error, or if it is exactly what it looks like. If it's the latter, you need to decide what you're going to do. But Alara, by 9 a.m. tomorrow, I have to make a call. And you know what my call has to be? He didn't need to say another word. The choice was mine. I had 24 hours to decide whether to save my father or to do my job. For the first time in my life, I held all the power. I held his entire future, his freedom, in my hands. The conference room at Letitia James's law firm was cold and modern, all glass and steel overlooking the city skyline. I sat on one side of the massive mahogany table, Letitia beside me, a stack of folders neatly arranged in front of her. I felt calm. The 24-hour deadline, Mr. Sterling had given me was ticking, but for the first time, I knew exactly what I had to do. I had called this urgent reconciliation meeting. I'd had Letitia send the invitation, framing it as a discussion to resolve all family financial matters before I pursued action based on the HELOC agreement. They were late, of course. My father, mother, and Lyra swept in 20 minutes past the hour, a wave of expensive perfume and arrogance. They didn't look worried. They looked triumphant. They clearly thought my legal letter, the one about the HELOC violation, was just a desperate bluff. They believed my threat to call the police in Nashville was just a childish tantrum. They thought I was here to surrender, My father didn't even sit down. He stood at the head of the table like it was his boardroom, radiating a false sense of authority. My mother and Lyra took chairs, looking bored and annoyed, as if I was wasting their precious time. They didn't even acknowledge Letitia. "Ilara," my father said, his voice full of false fatherly patience, a condescending tone I knew all too well. "I'm glad you've finally seen reason. This whole drama has been incredibly tiresome for everyone." My mother sighed, pulling her fur-trimmed coat tight, a theatrical gesture. "The Hamiltons are very understanding, thank goodness. But Orion is confused. We need to clear this up for him." "We don't have all day, Ilara," my father continued, tapping his expensive watch, a subtle display of his supposed importance. "I'm in the middle of a major expansion. Your sister has a wedding to plan, so let's get this over with." He slid a single piece of paper across the polished table. It stopped right in front of me, a vehicle title transfer form, already filled out. All it needed was my signature. "Just sign the title over to Lyra," he said, his voice magnanimous, as if he were granting me a favor, a benevolent patriarch. "Sign it, and we can all forget this little episode of yours. It was a mistake. You were emotional. We get it. We'll tell Orion it was a simple misunderstanding at the bank," my mother added, her smile not reaching her eyes, a cold, calculating glint in their depths. "No harm, no foul. We can all go back to being a family." "And the lawsuit you threatened me with?" I asked, my voice even, betraying no emotion. "The one where you'd sue me for my college tuition?" "Oh, that." My father waved his hand dismissively, a small smirk on his lips, confident in his power. "Just family talk. You know how it is. Sign the paper, Ilara, and I'll make it all go away. We just want what's best for the family. You understand? Lyra deserves this." I looked at the paper, then I looked up at him, my gaze unwavering. I glanced at Letitia, who gave me the slightest, almost imperceptible nod. The trap was set. They had walked right into it. I calmly slid the unsigned title transfer back across the table. Letitia leaned forward, her hands folded neatly on top of a single folder. Her voice was polite, almost pleasant, but cut through my father's bluster like a scalpel, precise and deadly. "Mr. Vance," she began, her voice a calm, steady force. "My client will not be signing anything, and, just to be clear, she is not here to forget anything. This isn't a negotiation over a car." My father's smile faltered, a flicker of unease in his eyes. "What is this, then? More threats?" "No," Letitia said, her smile vanishing, her expression now serious and unyielding. "A clarification. We are actually here to discuss the source of the funds you used, or rather attempted to use, to pay for that luxury car. We're here to discuss the check for $80,000 you wrote to the luxury car dealership yesterday morning, the one that was returned for non-sufficient funds." My mother and Lyra both looked at my father, their faces blank with confusion, a dawning horror in their eyes. "What is she talking about, Marcus? You told us you handled it." My father's face went rigid. He didn't look at his wife. He stared at me, his eyes narrowing, a desperate, cornered animal. "That is a private business matter. It has nothing to do with this." "It has everything to do with this," I said, finally speaking, my voice as calm and steady as Letitia's, each word a precise, calculated blow. I leaned forward, my gaze fixed on my father, my eyes unwavering. "Dad, that check you wrote, the $80,000 one, it wasn't just non-sufficient funds. I saw the flag at the bank this morning. My boss called me in." My father's blood seemed to drain from his face. He actually reached out and gripped the back of a chair to steady himself, his arrogance completely gone, replaced by a terrifying vulnerability. I continued, my voice merciless, devoid of any pity. "You didn't write that check from your business operating account, did you? You wrote it from the escrow account for the Sterling project. You tried to pay for Lyra's car with $80,000 of a client's money." My mother gasped, her hand flying to her throat, her eyes wide with disbelief and dawning horror. "Marcus, what is she saying? What's an escrow account?" "It's a client's trust fund, Mom," I said, not taking my eyes off my father, who now looked physically ill, his face a sickly gray. "It's money that isn't his. It's the money the Sterlings paid as a deposit, held in trust until the project is finished," Letitia added, her voice cold and clear, leaving no room for doubt. "What you did, Mr. Vance, wasn't just a cash flow problem. It's called misappropriation of funds. It's called embezzlement. It's called bank fraud. And it carries a minimum sentence of 5 to 10 years in a federal prison. Lyra finally understood. "Oh my God," she whispered. Her panic no longer about a car, but about total, complete ruin. Her perfect world shattering around her. You stole it." My father didn't answer. He just sank heavily into the chair he had been gripping, his arrogant posture completely gone. He was no longer the patriarch. He was just a criminal, and he knew that I, his boring, practical daughter, the bank compliance officer, was the only person in the room who understood exactly how much trouble he was in. My father just stared, his face a chalky, pale white. The arrogance and rage from Christmas night, from the confrontation in Nashville, all of it had vanished, replaced by the slack-jawed, empty look of a man who had been cornered, his spirit broken. He was no longer the patriarch. He was just a criminal, and he knew that I, his boring, practical daughter, the bank compliance officer, was the only person in the room who understood exactly how much trouble he was in. "Brenda." My mother looked from my father's terrified face back to me, her mind clearly unable to process the information, the magnitude of the disaster. "Marcus," she whispered, her voice trembling, a desperate plea. "What is she talking about? An escrow account? Marcus, what did you do?" Lyra finally understood. "Oh my God," she breathed, her panic no longer about a car, but about total, complete ruin. You stole money, Daddy. What about Orion? What about the Hamiltons? If they find out you're a thief?" My mother turned on her husband, her voice rising to a shrill shriek, a desperate, panicked sound. "Marcus, answer me. Did you steal from your clients after everything I've done to build this family's name? You reckless, arrogant, stupid man. I would advise you both to stop talking." Letitia cut in, her voice bored, but with an underlying steel. "Unless you're actively trying to admit to conspiracy to defraud." My father finally spoke. His voice was a dry, broken rasp, a shadow of its former booming self. He wasn't looking at his wife or his favorite daughter. He was looking only at me, his eyes filled with a desperate, defeated plea. "What? What do you want, Alara?" I looked at my father. No pity, no anger, just a cold, professional assessment, a detached evaluation of a problem. "What I want to go back to my job and not have my family's name flagged for federal crimes. But that's not really an option anymore, is it?" I turned to my lawyer. "Letitia, the luxury car. Can we return it?" Letitia nodded. "Absolutely. Given the fraudulent nature of the funds used for the down payment and the direct violation of the HELOC agreement, we can void the sale. The dealership will be more than happy to take the car back once the funds are cleared, just to avoid being named as a party in a federal fraud case." I looked back at my father, my voice unwavering. "I don't care about the car. I'm giving it back. That's not the issue here. The issue is the $80,000 you stole from the Sterling escrow account." I leaned forward, making sure he saw my eyes, making sure he understood the gravity of the situation. "My boss, Mr. Sterling, no relation, ironically, gave me 24 hours before he reports this. That was 2 hours ago. So you have 22 hours left. Here is the agreement," I said, as Letitia slid a new, much thicker document across the mahogany table. "It's not a negotiation, Dad. It's an ultimatum." Letitia began to speak, her voice clear and cutting, laying out the terms of my father's surrender. "First, you have until 9 a.m. tomorrow to find and return every single cent of that $80,000 to the Sterling escrow account, not a penny short. My client, in her capacity as a compliance officer at the bank, will personally verify the transfer." My father started to speak, his eyes desperate, a flicker of his old bluster trying to resurface. I can't. I don't have that money." "That," I said, cutting him off, my voice devoid of sympathy. "Sounds like a you problem. You can sell your watch. You can drain your retirement. You can beg Lyra's rich future in-laws. I don't care. But if that money is not back in that account by 9 a.m. tomorrow, my boss makes his call, and I, as a compliance officer, will be making my own. I will not lose my license and my career for you." Letitia continued, her voice firm. "Second, you will immediately file a motion to dismiss any and all civil actions against our client regarding the car or any other family matter. You will sign this document, which also nullifies the HELOC agreement, releasing Miss Vance from all liability for your creative accounting. And third, I said, taking over, my voice cold and precise, this is the important one. You will write a letter of apology, not to me. I'm done with your apologies. You will write it to Orion and the Hamilton family. Lyra looked up, horrified. No. Yes, I said, my gaze fixed on her. In it, you will confess everything. You will admit the company is failing. You will admit you lied about your wealth. You will admit you committed fraud by using my credit to buy a car you couldn't afford. And you will admit you did it all to trick them into a family merger they didn't need. And you, Lyra, will deliver it to them personally. No, Lyra shrieked, jumping to her feet, her face contorted in a mask of pure terror. I won't. That will ruin me. Orion will leave me. I looked at my sister, my voice calm, almost detached. He's going to find out anyway. This way, you get to control the narrative. You get to be the one who was shocked and appalled by your father's crimes. I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. It's either that, or you can visit him in prison. Your choice. My father stared at the document, his breath coming in short, harsh gasps. His face was a terrible mask of gray, all color drained from it. You're blackmailing me, he whispered, the words choking him, a desperate accusation. You're blackmailing your own father. My mother let out a small, wounded sound, but I didn't look at her. My focus was entirely on him. No, Dad, I said, my voice flat and devoid of emotion. A cold, hard truth. I am not blackmailing you. Blackmail is what you did to me, threatening to report a car stolen that you knew wasn't. What I am doing is giving you a way out, a 22-hour window to fix your crime before it becomes public knowledge. I leaned forward, making sure he saw my eyes, making sure he understood the unwavering resolve behind my words. I am a compliance officer at a federally insured bank. I have a fiduciary duty and a legal obligation to report fraud. What you did wasn't just a cash flow problem. It was a federal crime. My boss is already aware of the transaction. He is the one who gave me this deadline. I stood up. I am giving you a chance to put the money back before the official report is filed. That's not blackmail, Dad. That's the only shred of mercy you're going to get. 9 a.m. tomorrow. The clock is ticking. The ride home from the lawyer's office was dead silent. A heavy, toxic silence that filled every inch of the luxury SUV. A suffocating blanket of unspoken recriminations. My mother, Brenda, was crying, but they were quiet, terrified tears, nothing like the performative wail she had unleashed in Maya's apartment. Lyra just stared out the window, her face pale and completely blank, as if she had already left her body, her mind reeling from the shattering of her perfect future. My father, Marcus, just drove, his hands gripping the mahogany steering wheel so hard his knuckles were bone white, his jaw clenched, his eyes fixed on the road ahead, but seeing only the abyss. The silence was louder and more terrifying than any screaming, a chilling premonition of the ruin to come. The second the heavy front door of their mansion closed, the silence shattered. My father didn't yell, not at first. He just moved with a desperate, frantic energy. He ripped his suit jacket off, throwing it to the marble floor, a gesture of raw, uncontrolled frustration. He ran into his home office, the room paneled in dark wood, the ultimate symbol of his supposed success. I could hear him tearing the room apart, drawers being ripped open, papers scattering, the sound of glass breaking, a desperate search for something that wasn't there. My mother and Lyra just stood in the grand foyer, frozen, two statues in designer clothes, their faces masks of shock and fear. My father reappeared in the doorway, his tie ripped loose, his custom shirt untucked, and his face glistened with a sick, panicked sweat. "Where is it?" he growled, his voice a low rasp, a desperate plea. "Where is what, Marcus?" my mother whispered, her hands fluttering at her throat, her voice trembling. "What are you looking for?" "The money," he roared, his control finally snapping, his voice echoing through the cavernous foyer. "The jewelry, the bonds your mother left you, the emergency cash. Where is it?" "It's in the safe," my mother stammered, her voice barely audible. "Marcus, you're scaring me. What are you doing the wall safe being opened?" Then a heavy, dull thud. He came back down the stairs slowly, one step at a time, his face utterly defeated, his shoulders slumped. He was holding a small metal lockbox. "It's not enough," he whispered, his voice hollow, empty. "It's maybe 20,000. 20 if we sell all of it." He reached the bottom step, and his gaze fixed on my mother, the desperation in his eyes curdling into pure, unadulterated rage. "This is your fault," he spat, the words venomous. "My fault." My mother shrieked, her own terror finding a voice, a desperate defense. "How is this my fault? You're the one who— That wedding!" he roared, his voice echoing in the cavernous foyer, filled with a bitter resentment. "That stupid $80,000 car. You and your image, you and the Hamiltons. We have to impress them, Marcus. We have to show them we belong." He mimicked her, his voice a cruel, high-pitched whine, a caricature of her pleas. "You had to have the luxury car. You had to have the party. You pushed and you pushed and you pushed. I told you we were tight. I told you the Sterling deal was slow, but you didn't care. You just wanted your princess to have her perfect wedding." My mother's face crumpled. "I didn't know you were stealing," she screamed back, her words bouncing off the marble, a desperate attempt to deflect blame. "You told me it was handled. You told me the company was fine. You're the one who lied. You lied to me. You lied to all of us. I lied to keep this." My father swept his arm around, indicating the high ceilings, the useless crystal chandelier, the entire hollow performance of their lives. "I lied to keep this, to keep you happy, and now it's gone. Don't you understand?" He sank onto the bottom step of the grand staircase, his entire body deflating, his spirit broken. He buried his face in his hands, his voice a broken whisper. "It's all gone. That girl, that compliance officer, she has us. She has us by the throat. I don't have $80,000, Brenda. It doesn't exist. It's gone. I used it to cover the payroll last month." He looked up, his eyes dead, devoid of hope. "It's over. She's going to make the call. I'm going to prison." Lyra stood frozen by the grand staircase, her expensive handbag still dangling from her wrist. The sound of her parents screaming was just noise at first, the familiar ugly soundtrack of her father's rages. But this was different. The words her father was yelling weren't about pride or respect. They were about money. "It's not enough," he roared. "It's 20,000. Maybe she wants 80. My mother's voice was a thin, reedy shriek. "Well, sell something. Sell your watches. Call your partners." "I have nothing to sell," my father bellowed, his voice cracking, raw with despair. "Don't you get it? The company is a house of cards. I used the Sterling money to cover payroll last month. There's nothing left. It's gone." Lyra's blood ran cold. Gone. It wasn't just that he couldn't pay me back. It was that he couldn't pay her back. He wasn't just a liar. He was broke. The word echoed in her mind. Broke. Bankrupt. Her mind flashed instantly to Orion, to his mother, Mrs. Hamilton, with her cold, appraising eyes and her endless, subtle questions about the family's assets and holdings. She thought of the wedding planner, the 1,000-a-plate catering, the non-refundable deposit on the ballroom at the prestigious hotel. Her father hadn't just lied about the luxury car. He had lied about everything. The dowry wasn't just a car. It was a promise that he was stable, that his company was thriving, that this marriage was a merger of equals. But it was all a lie. She wasn't the princess of a wealthy construction family. She was the daughter of a broke, desperate criminal. Orion wouldn't just be confused. He would be gone. The Hamiltons wouldn't just be disappointed. They would be disgusted. They would drop her so fast it would make her head spin. They would never, ever let their son marry into a family facing federal fraud charges and public humiliation. She wasn't just going to lose the car. She was going to lose the wedding. She was going to lose Orion. She was going to lose the house, the status, the Instagram perfect life she had been promised. Her father's voice, now a broken whisper from the stairs. "She's going to make the call. I'm going to prison," was just confirmation. It was over. Her entire future was evaporating. Unless a new thought, cold and sharp, cut through her panic, a desperate, self-preserving instinct. Her father was going down. That was a fact. He was a sinking ship. But he didn't have to take her with him. He had made her a victim of his lies, hadn't he? He had forced her to pretend. He had put her in this impossible position. She looked at her weeping mother and her broken father. They were weak. She was not. She had one card left to play. She was the one engaged to Orion Hamilton. Lyra turned, walked silently up the grand staircase past her sobbing parents, and went into her bedroom. She locked the door. She took a deep, steadying breath, wiping the tears from her face, her mind already calculating, strategizing. She pulled out her phone and found Orion's name. She had to save herself, and she would do it by any means necessary. Lyra stood perfectly still in the center of her pristine blush-pink bedroom. The muffled sounds of her father's desperate sobbing and her mother's hysterical accusations were a distant, unimportant noise, fading into the background of her new reality. She looked at her reflection in the full-length antique mirror. Her face was pale, her makeup ruined. This was not the face of a Hamilton. This was the face of a victim. A slow, cold calculation settled over her, hardening her features. Her father was a sinking ship. She had to get to a lifeboat. She took a single, shuddering breath of performance, a deep inhale to get into character. Then she dialed Orion. He answered on the second ring, his voice wary, a hint of suspicion already present. "Lyra, what's going on?" "My mother said..." "Orion." Lyra's voice broke, a perfect, terrified sob exploding from her, a sound of pure, unadulterated distress. "Orion, thank God. Oh my God, please help me." "Lyra, calm down." "What is it? What's wrong?" Orion's voice was sharp now, alarmed, a protective instinct kicking in. I'm locked in my room," she cried, her voice high and thin, trembling with feigned fear. "I'm so scared. It's my father." "Your father? What is he doing? Is he hurting you?" Orion's voice was hard, laced with genuine concern. "No, he's gone crazy," she wailed, pouring all her acting prowess into the performance. "You were right. You were right to be suspicious. Oh God, Orion, you were right all along." This was the key. She had to make him feel smart, like he had seen this coming, like his instincts were superior. "What are you talking about? What happened after we left the lawyer's office?" "It's all a lie," she screamed, as if the realization were just hitting her, a fresh wave of horror. "Everything, the company, the money, it's all gone. He's broke, Orion. He just admitted it. He's ruined." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end, a stunned silence. "Jesus, Lyra. But that's not the worst part." She rushed on, not letting him think, not letting him process. He stole money from his clients. That's what Alara was talking about. She wasn't lying. My own father is a thief. He's an embezzler. He's been lying to us," she cried, making it a shared betrayal, a collective wound. "He's been lying to your family. He made me think everything was fine. He made me plan this wedding." Her voice cracked again, a perfect, heartbreaking sound. "And the car, the luxury car, he bought it with my sister's credit, and then he tried to pay for it with that stolen money. He made me tell you it was a gift. He told me to tell you it was proof of his success. He made me a part of it, Orion. He made me lie to you." This was the master stroke. She wasn't a participant. She was a pawn, a victim, manipulated by her own father. "Lyra, stop. Calm down," Orion said, his voice firm, taking control. "Where is he now?" "He's downstairs. He's screaming at my mother. He knows. I know. I'm terrified he's going to come up here. He threatened Alara, Orion. He said he'd ruin her. What if he tries to hurt me for telling you the truth?" She let that hang in the air, the image of his fragile fiancé locked in her room, terrified of her criminal father, a damsel in distress waiting for her knight. He would have to rescue her. "He is not going to hurt you," Orion said, his voice hard, resolute. "My father is right here. We're coming to get you. Please hurry," she sobbed, a final desperate plea. "I can't stay here. I can't be a part of this. I love you, Orion. I don't care about the money. I can't be married into a family of criminals. I'm so ashamed. He made me look like a fool to your parents." "It's not your fault, Lyra," Orion said, his voice softening, falling right into her trap. "You didn't know. You're a victim in this too. We see that. Please, just come get me. I'll pack a bag. I can't be here when the police come." "Oh my God. Orion, Alara is going to call the police. I'm on my way, he said, his voice filled with a new urgency. We're leaving now. We will handle this. We will protect you. Do not leave that room. Do you understand? Yes. Yes. Please hurry. I love you. Lyra hung up the phone. The sobbing stopped instantly. Her face, which had been a mask of terror, went completely blank. A chilling transformation. She walked to her closet, pushed aside the trendy outfits, and pulled out her designer duffel bag. Methodically, she began to pack, not clothes, but her jewelry box, her laptop, her passport, and the expensive shoes she had bought for the wedding. She left the rest. Outside her locked door, she could hear her father's broken sobs and her mother's desperate pleading voice. She ignored them, zipping the bag, her future already mapped out. She was a Hamilton now. She had survived. Orion hung up the phone, his face pale, but his expression hard, resolute. He turned to his father, Richard Hamilton Sr., who was standing by the fireplace in their library, swirling a glass of brandy, his gaze fixed on the dancing flames. His mother, Caroline, sat on the damask sofa, her back perfectly straight, an embodiment of old money elegance. The room was silent, the only sound the rhythmic ticking of a grandfather clock, marking the passage of time, of destinies shifting. Well? Richard Sr. asked, his voice clipped, devoid of emotion. It's exactly as we suspected, only worse, Orion said, his voice tight with controlled anger. Marcus Vance isn't just financially unstable. He's a criminal. He's been embezzling money from his clients' escrow accounts. The other sister, the one they uninvited, she works at the bank. She caught him. Caroline Hamilton set her teacup down with a sharp click, the sound echoing in the silent room. A public fraud scandal, she said, her voice thin with disgust, her eyes narrowed. The wedding is in 3 months, Orion. Our name will be linked with embezzlement. This is not just a cash flow problem. This is a catastrophe. It's a problem, Richard Sr. corrected, his voice like steel, cold and unyielding. And we will handle it. He didn't look panicked. He looked like a CEO handling a hostile takeover, his mind already calculating the next moves. Lyra is hysterical, Orion said, pacing the expensive rug, his concern genuine. She's locked in her room. She says her father is going to prison and she's terrified. She said he forced her to lie to us about the car, about the company's stability. Did he? Caroline said, her eyes narrowing, a subtle assessment of Lyra's value, her words not a question, but a judgment. She's claiming she's a victim. She is a victim, Mother, Orion insisted, his voice rising in her defense. She's a victim of her father's crimes. Of course she is, Richard Sr. said, cutting him off, his voice smooth and authoritative. He picked up his phone from the mahogany desk. She is the primary victim, and that is exactly how the world is going to see it. Caroline, call the prestigious hotel. Cancel the ballroom. We'll absorb the deposit. It's a small price to pay. He was already dialing, his mind racing, his strategy forming. David, it's Richard Hamilton. I need you and the entire team at the office now. Yes, at 9:00 p.m. on a Wednesday. This is a crisis. He began to issue orders, his voice crisp and authoritative, a general commanding his troops. David, we have a situation regarding the Vance family. Marcus Vance is about to be indicted for bank fraud. My son's fiancée, his daughter, is the one who discovered the crime. She is terrified of her father and is prepared to cooperate fully with the authorities. He listened for a moment, then continued, his voice firm. No, she is not a person of interest. She is a cooperating witness. She is a victim who was coerced and manipulated by her father. I am sending a car to retrieve her as we speak. I need you to get to the district attorney's office tonight. I want you there first thing in the morning, before this other sister, this Alara, can poison the well. We get ahead of the narrative. Lyra Hamilton, our future daughter-in-law, is the one who is bravely bringing her father's crimes to light. We are protecting her. We are handling this. Is that clear? He hung up and looked at Orion, his gaze piercing. Son, go get her. Bring her here. She doesn't go back to that house. She doesn't speak to her parents. From now on, we handle her. I had been at my desk since 7 a.m. The clock in the corner of my monitor was the only thing I watched, its relentless ticking marking the passage of time, the approach of an inevitable reckoning. 8:58 a.m. My office was quiet, a clean, sterile space on the 32nd floor of the bank tower. It was my sanctuary, the place where I was defined by my competence, not my family. Today, the two worlds were about to collide, irrevocably. My hands were steady on my keyboard. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't angry. I was just done. At 8:59 a.m., I ran the final query on the Vance construction accounts. My father's name, Marcus Vance, stared back at me from the screen, a ghost of the man he once was. I clicked on the Sterling Project escrow account. The balance was unchanged. The $80,000 deficit was still there, a gaping digital wound, a testament to his desperation and deceit. He hadn't returned the money. Of course he hadn't. He had 24 hours. 24 hours to sell his watch, to drain his retirement, to beg his rich new friends, the Hamiltons, for a loan. He had 24 hours to fix the felony he had committed, and he had chosen to do nothing. He was counting on me. He was betting that I was still the responsible daughter, the practical Alara, the family scapegoat who would quietly absorb the pain and the risk to protect the family's perfect, fraudulent image. He was betting that I would commit a federal crime for him, that I would violate my professional oath and my legal duty to cover up his crime. He was betting that my fear of him was stronger than my integrity. He had made a bad bet. The clock on my monitor clicked 9:01 a.m. The deadline had passed. My phone rang. It was Mr. Sterling's extension. I let it ring once, then picked it up. Alara Vance. Alara, it's Sterling. It's 9 o'clock. What do you have for me? His voice was grim. He knew what the answer would be. I took a breath, my voice clear and steady, devoid of any personal emotion. Good morning, sir. I verified the accounts as requested. The discrepancy in the Sterling escrow account has not been corrected. The $80,000 is still missing. There was a heavy sigh on the other end, a sound of weary resignation. I see. And you're certain this wasn't an accounting error? Yes, sir, I said, my voice clear and strong, unwavering. I have the full transaction log. A check was written from the escrow account to a luxury car dealership. That check was returned for non-sufficient funds. The action is a clear case of misappropriation. There is no ambiguity. Damn it, he said, not at me, but at the situation, a frustrated expletive. I was hoping, for your sake, Alara, that he would have fixed it. So was I, sir. I lied. I hadn't hoped at all. I knew my father. Well, he said, his voice turning all business, the professional mask firmly back in place. You know what this means? I have to escalate this to the legal department and the federal regulators. I can't sit on this. I understand, sir, I said, my voice calm and resolute. And I'm filing the suspicious activity report right now as per my legal obligation. You're sure you're okay to do that, Alara? This is your family. I looked at the pink piggy bank I had brought from home. I had placed it on my desk as a reminder, a stark, tangible reminder of what I was worth to them, a symbol of their contempt. They made their choice, Mr. Sterling. I'm making mine. I'm a compliance officer, and this is a clear-cut violation. All right, he said, his voice heavy with the weight of the decision. File the SR. I'll make my calls. Good work, Alara. I'm sorry it had to be you. I hung up the phone, opened the bank's internal reporting software, and in the field marked Suspect Name, I typed Marcus A. Vance. I hit submit. The morning was chaotic, but not for me. While I sat in my quiet office on the 32nd floor, across town, my father was living on borrowed time. The scene cuts to the opulent, dark, wood-paneled office of Vance Construction. My father, Marcus, was not calm. He was sweating, his expensive silk tie ripped loose, his phone pressed hard against his ear, his voice a desperate whisper. What do you mean you can't move it? He yelled into the phone, his voice cracking with panic. I don't care about a holding period. I need that money now. Liquidate the stock. Sell. I don't care what you sell. Just find me $80,000. He was pacing frantically behind his massive mahogany desk, the very picture of a trapped animal, his empire crumbling around him. He was trying to cover the $80,000 he'd stolen. He still thought he had time. He still thought this was a negotiation with me. He thought his deadline was 9 a.m. He was wrong. The federal government works faster. At 8:45 a.m., his office door didn't open. It burst inward. 3 men and 1 woman in dark blue vests, FBI emblazoned in bright yellow letters across their chests, entered the room. They didn't run. They moved with a terrifying, calm efficiency, their presence radiating authority. My father froze, the phone slipping from his hand and clattering onto the desk, the sound echoing in the sudden silence. "What? What is this?" he stammered, his eyes wide with disbelief and dawning horror. "Who are you? You can't just barge in here." The lead agent, a tall woman with cold, intelligent eyes, didn't even blink. "Marcus Vance." "Yes, I am Marcus Vance. I own this company. What is the meaning of this?" The agent held up her badge, her movements precise and professional. "Agent Miller, FBI Financial Crimes Division. You're under arrest for bank fraud, wire fraud, and misappropriation of client funds." The color drained from my father's face. It was instantaneous. The bluster, the arrogance, the rage, all of it evaporated, leaving behind a hollow, terrified old man, his carefully constructed facade shattered. "No," he whispered, his voice barely audible. That's a misunderstanding. It's a family matter. My daughter, she's confused." "Sir," Agent Miller said, her voice devoid of any emotion as she unhooked handcuffs from her belt, her words cutting through his desperate pleas. "Your family matter involves embezzling $80,000 from a federally insured bank's client escrow account. Your daughter, the bank's compliance officer, filed a suspicious activity report this morning, as was her legal duty. We have the check. We have the transaction logs. We have the warrant. Put your hands behind your back." "No, please," my father begged, backing away until he hit the glass wall of his office. A cornered animal. "Brenda! Someone!" The agents were on him in a second. They turned him around, and the sharp, metallic click of the handcuffs echoed in the luxurious office, a chilling sound of finality. Through the glass, his entire company was watching. His assistants, his project managers, everyone. They stood frozen, their mouths open as they watched the man whose name was on the building being cuffed like a common criminal, his dignity stripped away. "You can't do this!" My father was sobbing now, big, ugly, gulping sobs, his carefully cultivated image completely destroyed. "It was a mistake. It was for my daughter. It was for her wedding." Agent Miller just looked at him with a hint of pity, her expression unyielding. "Tell it to the judge, sir." They walked him out, pushing him past the reception desk, past the large gold Vance construction logo he had been so proud of, and out into the bright morning light where news vans were already pulling up to the curb, their cameras poised, ready to capture his public humiliation. The scene splits. On the left side of the screen, the glass doors of the Vance construction lobby burst open. The gold logo gleams under the fluorescent lights. Marcus Vance is shoved through, his hands cuffed tightly behind his back. The expensive, custom-tailored suit he wore just hours ago is now rumpled, his silk tie hopelessly crooked. His face, once purple with rage, is now a waxy, sallow gray. He's not crying. He's beyond that. He looks hollow, his eyes darting around wildly, not at the agents flanking him, but at the people, his employees. They are standing in the lobby, frozen. His receptionist, a woman who has worked for him for 20 years, has her hand over her mouth. His project managers, the men he golfed with, just stare, their faces a mixture of shock and morbid curiosity. "Marcus, what's going on?" one of them whispers as the agents push him toward the main entrance. My father doesn't answer. He can't. He stumbles on the plush Persian rug, the one he always bragged about, and one of the agents yanks him upright, his dignity gone, his pride shattered. "Move along, Mr. Vance," the agent says, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. As they reach the revolving glass doors, the daylight outside reveals what's waiting. A local news van is already parked at the curb, a cameraman hoisting a large camera onto his shoulder. The red light is on. They were tipped off. The humiliation is complete. My father freezes, a cornered animal, but the agents push him forward, out into the public eye, his perp walk beginning for the world to see. On the right side of the screen, the sweeping, curved staircase of the mansion. The front door is open. Lyra Vance, the golden child, is standing in the foyer. She's holding a single, flawless designer duffel bag. She too is crying, but her tears are beautiful, tragic. They streak her perfect makeup just enough to look artfully distressed, a carefully crafted image of victimhood. My mother, Brenda, is clinging to her, her body racked with real, hysterical sobs. "No, Lyra, you can't leave me. You can't go with them. He's your father. I have to, Mom, Lyra whispers, her voice trembling, but firm, a chilling resolve in her eyes. She gently pries my mother's fingers from her arm. I can't be here. I don't feel safe. A sleek black luxury sedan, the kind that costs more than a house, idles silently in the driveway. Orion Hamilton, her fiancé, steps out. He's not in a suit. He's in expensive casual wear, looking like a knight arriving to save his princess. He doesn't look at my mother. He walks straight to Lyra and puts a protective arm around her. "It's okay, darling," he says, his voice a low, comforting rumble. "You're safe now. My family will take care of everything. You're with us." Lyra collapses against his chest, a perfect picture of a damsel in distress. "He lied to us, Orion," she sobs, her voice muffled against his expensive shirt. "He lied to all of us." "I know," Orion says, stroking her hair, his gaze fixed on my mother, a silent judgment. "We'll handle it. You don't have to worry about anything ever again." My mother lurches forward, screaming, "Lyra, don't leave me. Don't leave your mother." Lyra gets into the car. She gives my mother one last look through the tinted window. It's not a look of sadness. It's a look of finality, a cold, calculated farewell. The heavy door closes with a soft, expensive thud. The screen merges. On the left, my father is being shoved, stumbling, into the back of a standard blue and white police vehicle. The door slams with a cheap, metallic clang. On the right, Lyra is settling into the plush, cream-colored leather of the luxury sedan. The door closes with a silent, heavy finality. Both cars pull away, heading in opposite directions. One to a federal holding cell, the other to a gated mansion. The family is irrevocably broken, shattered by the weight of their own lies. I was back at my desk on the 32nd floor. The 9 a.m. deadline had passed. My report was filed. Mr. Sterling had made his calls. All I could do was wait. I wasn't triumphant. I wasn't even angry anymore. I just felt quiet, a profound sense of calm settling over me. I was looking at the small pink ceramic piggy bank I had placed on my desk, a reminder of what I was worth to them. $100 joke. A small news alert popped up on the corner of my computer monitor. Developing story. Local CEO arrested in the city. My hand was steady as I clicked the link. A live video feed opened. It was the lobby of my father's company. I saw the gold Vance construction logo on the wall behind the reception desk. And then I saw him. My father, Marcus Vance, was being led through the lobby in handcuffs, flanked by 2 federal agents. His head was down, his expensive suit rumpled. They pushed him through the glass doors and into a waiting black car. The camera zoomed in on his face, a mask of gray, abject humiliation. The anchor began to speak, her voice grave. Marcus Vance, prominent local developer, was arrested this morning on federal charges of bank fraud and embezzlement. My office phone rang, jarring me from the screen. It wasn't my work line. It was my personal cell. "Mom," flashed on the caller ID. I picked it up and said nothing, just listened. "Ilara!" My mother's voice was a raw, hysterical shriek, so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. "Ilara, you did this. It's all your fault." I listened, silent, watching the news replay the video of my father being put in the car, his world collapsing around him. "They took him!" she screamed, her voice cracking, filled with pure, unadulterated panic. "The police, they took him. They cuffed him, Ilara, like a criminal. Our neighbors saw. It's all over." She was sobbing, a terrible gulping sound of pure panic and despair. "And Lyra, oh God, Ilara, Lyra, she's gone. She just packed a bag and left. She went with them. She went with the Hamiltons. She abandoned us. She abandoned her own mother." I closed my eyes. The golden child had made her move. She had chosen the lifeboat, leaving her parents to drown. "It's all your fault!" my mother shrieked again, her voice laced with a bitter accusation. "You and your jealousy. You and that stupid car. You couldn't just let her be happy. You had to ruin us." Her voice suddenly changed, the rage collapsing into a desperate, pathetic plea. Ilara, please, you have to fix this. You're the only one who understands the books. You're the smart one with the bank. You have to call them. You have to tell them it was a mistake, a misunderstanding. You're his daughter, Ilara, your family. You have to fix this." I looked at the television screen. The news anchor was now showing a picture of the gleaming white luxury car with the red bow, a photo apparently taken by a guest at the Christmas party, a stark reminder of the catalyst for all this destruction. My mother was still screaming in my ear. "Elara, are you listening to me? You have to help us. You're the only one left." I looked at the piggy bank on my desk, a small pink ceramic symbol of my past. Then calmly, I pressed the end call button. I turned back to my work, leaving my mother's screams unanswered in the digital silence. The real work was just beginning. 6 months later, the words felt heavy, unreal. 6 months since I had last seen my father as a free man. Now I was sitting in the cold, sterile silence of a federal courthouse. The air smelled like old paper and floor wax. Everything was dark wood and imposing flags, designed to make you feel small, insignificant. I sat behind the prosecution team with Letitia, my lawyer, at my side. I wasn't on trial, but it felt like it. Then they let him in. Marcus Vance. He wasn't wearing his custom-tailored suits or his expensive watch. He was in a cheap, ill-fitting suit that his lawyer must have bought for him, a stark contrast to his former opulence. His face was gray, his hair had thinned, and he had lost a shocking amount of weight. The arrogant, booming patriarch who had dominated every room he entered was gone. In his place was a stooped, broken-looking man who wouldn't make eye contact with anyone. He sat at the defendant's table and stared at his hands, his spirit utterly defeated. I scanned the gallery, looking for my mother. It took me a moment to find her. She wasn't in the front row. She was sitting 3 rows back, alone. The fur coats and designer handbags were gone. She wore a simple knit sweater and looked old, frail. Her hair was no longer perfectly highlighted, and the lines on her face were deep and etched with a grief I had never seen before. She just looked lost, a ghost of her former self. My eyes met hers across the room. She flinched and looked away, as if she couldn't bear to look at me, the daughter who had brought her world crashing down. The judge entered. All rise. The trial was about to begin. The prosecutor called his next witness. The prosecution calls Lyra Hamilton to the stand. A door at the side of the courtroom opened. Lyra emerged, and she was a masterpiece of victimhood. The bright, garish colors she used to wear were gone. She wore a simple, high-necked navy blue dress. Her hair was pulled back in a modest bun, and her face was pale, almost translucent, with just enough makeup to highlight the dark, worried circles under her eyes. She looked fragile, young, and terrified, a picture of innocence betrayed. She clutched a small tissue in her hand as she walked to the stand. She did not look at her father. She sat, her hands trembling slightly as she was sworn in. In the front row, her husband, Orion Hamilton, watched her with a look of pure, protective adoration. Beside him, his mother, Caroline Hamilton, sat like a marble statue, her expression cold but approving, a silent guardian. "Mrs. Hamilton," the prosecutor began, his voice gentle, sympathetic. "Can you please state your relationship to the defendant, Marcus Vance?" Lyra's lower lip trembled. She took a breath, a delicate, practiced sigh. He's my father. Mrs. Hamilton, I know this is difficult. Can you tell the court about the events of last Christmas?" Lyra's eyes welled with perfectly timed tears, a single glistening drop rolling down her cheek. It was all a performance. My father, he was obsessed with image, with what the Hamiltons thought of us. Can you explain what you mean? He lied, she whispered, her voice cracking, filled with a feigned pain. He told me he was giving me a car, the luxury car. He said it was a wedding gift, a sign that his company was doing well. She dabbed her eye with the tissue, a delicate gesture. I had no idea. I thought he was my daddy. I thought he was proud of me. And when did you realize this was not the case? That night, she said, her voice growing smaller, more vulnerable. When my sister Elara confronted him, he became a monster. He screamed at her. He threatened her. And after she left, he threatened me. He threatened you, his own daughter? Yes, Lyra sobbed, her voice breaking, a picture of pure terror. He told me I had to lie for him. He said that if I didn't pretend everything was fine, he would ruin Orion. He said he would find a way to hurt the Hamilton family, to ruin their reputation. He said he would drag us all down with him. I was so scared. I didn't know what to do. Orion Hamilton in the front row put his arm around his mother's shoulder, his jaw tight with anger, his gaze fixed on my father, a silent condemnation. "So, what did you do?" the prosecutor asked, his voice full of sympathy, guiding her through her narrative. I called Orion," Lyra cried, looking at her husband, her eyes filled with a desperate, adoring plea. "I told him the truth. I told him I couldn't be part of a criminal family. I told him I didn't care about the money or the car. I just wanted to do the right thing." "So, you chose to cooperate with the authorities against your own father?" "I had to," she whispered, her voice barely audible, a testament to her supposed courage. "I couldn't live with the lies." The defense attorney, an overworked public defender my father was now forced to use, stood up for cross-examination. "Mrs. Hamilton," he said, his voice tired, weary, "you certainly enjoyed the benefits of your father's lies while they were happening, didn't you? The $80,000 car, the designer clothes, the lavish parties. You never questioned any of it then, did you?" Lyra looked at him, her eyes wide with a look of profound, innocent betrayal. "I enjoyed what I thought was my father's love," she said, her voice breaking, a perfect, heartbreaking sound. "I didn't know the price was his honor. I didn't know it was all built on stolen money. The moment I found out the truth, I walked away. I left that house with nothing but a single bag. I would rather have nothing and have my integrity than live a lie." She looked at the jury, one perfect tear rolling down her cheek, a masterclass in manipulation. "I lost my entire family that day, but I chose to do what was right. In the gallery, I watched with my lawyer, Letitia. My face was a mask of stone. The performance was flawless. The jury was eating it up. Lyra had saved herself, and in doing so, she had just buried our father. The prosecution calls Alara Vance to the stand. I stood up. The courtroom was silent, every eye on me, a heavy, expectant hush. I walked steadily to the witness box, my footsteps the only sound, each step a deliberate choice. I didn't look at my father. I didn't look at my mother. I looked only at the court clerk as I raised my right hand. After being sworn in, I sat. The prosecutor, a sharp woman in her 40s, approached. "Please state your full name and occupation for the court." "Alara Alexandria Vance. I am a senior compliance officer at SunTrust Bank. My specialty is financial fraud detection and regulatory adherence." "So you are an expert in financial crimes?" "I am an expert in identifying them." "Yes, thank you. Now, Miss Vance, I want to talk about two separate financial instruments. First, can you tell the court what a home equity line of credit is?" I explained it calmly, precisely. "It's a revolving line of credit secured by a property, a loan." "And did you have such a loan with the defendant, your father?" "No," I said, my voice clear. "My father was unable to secure one due to his credit history. I co-signed a HELOC on the family home as the primary borrower with the explicit notarized contractual agreement." I gestured to the document already entered into evidence, a silent, powerful testament to my foresight, that it was to be used only for documented emergencies for his business. And was an $80,000 luxury car a documented business emergency? "No," I said, my voice unwavering. "It was a direct violation of our contract. Thank you. Now, let's talk about the second instrument. In your professional capacity, Ms. Vance, can you explain to the jury what a client escrow account is?" I looked at the jury, my gaze steady, meeting each of their eyes. An escrow account is a legal trust. It holds funds that belong to a third party, in this case, the clients of Vance Construction. That money is segregated. It is not the company's money. It is not Mr. Vance's money. To use it for personal expenses is not just unethical. It is illegal. And what did the defendant do with his client escrow account? He wrote a check for $80,000 from the Sterling Project escrow account to a luxury car dealership. He attempted to embezzle his client's funds. And what was this $80,000 check for, Ms. Vance? It was his attempt to pay for the luxury car, to cover the loan he had fraudulently taken out in my name. The prosecutor paused, letting the jury absorb this, letting the full weight of the facts sink in. "So, to be perfectly clear, the defendant, your father, used your credit to illegally acquire a car for your sister. Then he attempted to pay for that car by illegally stealing money from his clients. That is correct, I said, my voice steady, unwavering, a testament to the truth. And when you, as both his daughter and a bank officer, discovered this, what was his reaction? He threatened me, I said simply, the words hanging in the air, stark and undeniable. He threatened to sue me into bankruptcy. He threatened to report the car stolen, a car that was legally in my name. He never denied the facts. He only threatened consequences if I exposed them. Thank you, Ms. Vance. No further questions. The public defender stood, looking tired, defeated. Ms. Vance, isn't this all just a family spat? You were angry about a Christmas gift. A piggy bank, wasn't it? Isn't it true you took the car out of spite? I met his gaze, my voice calm and clear. I was disrespected by the gift, yes, but that is a family matter. My father committing bank fraud is a federal matter. My feelings are irrelevant to the facts. The transaction logs, the notarized contract, and the bounced check from the stolen trust fund. Those are the facts. I am here to testify to those facts. As an officer of the bank, it is my legal and ethical duty. He stared at me, then at the jury, who were all watching me with rapt attention. He saw no emotional, hysterical daughter to discredit. He just saw a professional, an unyielding force of integrity. No further questions. He mumbled and sat down, his last attempt to discredit me failing. Mr. Harris, my father's public defender, stood up slowly. He looked rumpled, his suit cheap, a stark contrast to the high-powered lawyers in the room. He was a man paid by the state, now trying to defend a man who had squandered millions. He shuffled his papers and looked at me, not with anger, but with a kind of weary resignation. He had one play, and one play only, to paint me as the villain. Ms. Vance, he began, his voice soft, almost sympathetic, a deceptive calm. Let's go back to that Christmas party. Your father, your family, invited you into their home to celebrate, correct? Yes. And at this party, your father gave your sister a car, and he gave you a piggy bank. Is that right? Yes. And you were angry. I was disrespected. You were angry, he pressed, his voice rising, a subtle attempt to provoke an emotional response. You were jealous of your sister's gift, weren't you? This successful, beautiful sister who was getting married while you, by your own admission, were just the stable one. My feelings aren't on trial. Oh, I think they are, Harris said, stepping closer to the jury, his voice gaining confidence. Isn't it true you then stormed out and took that $80,000 car, a car you knew was intended for your sister? It was legally in my name. A car you took purely out of spite, he continued, ignoring me, his gaze fixed on the jury, trying to sway their emotions. And when your father threatened to get the car back, you didn't just call a civil lawyer. You used your position at the bank to dig up dirt, to find a crime to put him in this very chair. He turned to the jury, his arms open wide, a theatrical gesture. This isn't about fraud. This is about a family argument over a Christmas present. This is about a jealous daughter who was so consumed with revenge that she decided to send her own father to prison. Isn't that the truth, Ms. Vance? This entire federal case, it's just your way of getting back at him, isn't it? I looked at Mr. Harris, then at the jury, and finally my gaze settled on my father. He wouldn't look at me. He just stared at the table, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Mr. Harris, I said, my voice clear and steady, filling the silent courtroom, each word resonating with truth. You are trying to confuse my feelings with his felony. I turned to the jury, my gaze unwavering, connecting with each of them. Yes, I was angry. I was hurt. I was humiliated. My father giving me a child's piggy bank in front of 50 people was proof that he disrespects me. That is a family matter. That is not why we are here today. I leaned forward slightly, my voice gaining intensity, a quiet power. My father writing a fraudulent check from a client's escrow account is proof that he is an embezzler. That is a federal matter. I could see the jury members nodding, their expressions firm, understanding. My feelings didn't create the bounce check. My feelings didn't move money between illegal accounts. My feelings didn't generate the suspicious activity report that my boss escalated. And my feelings did not violate federal banking laws. My father's actions did. I finished, looking directly at the defense attorney, my gaze unwavering. My jealousy is not on trial here today. My father's crimes are, and the facts are not in dispute. The gavel fell with a crack that echoed in the silent courtroom, a sound of finality, of judgment rendered. Marcus Vance gripped the edge of the defendant's table, his knuckles white, his face a mask of terror. The jury had deliberated for only 4 hours, a swift and decisive verdict. On the charge of bank fraud, the forewoman read, her voice flat, devoid of emotion. We find the defendant, Marcus Vance, guilty. My mother let out a small, strangled cry from the back row, a sound of pure, unadulterated despair. On the charge of wire fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of embezzlement from an escrow account, we find the defendant guilty. My father swayed, his knees buckling, his body giving way under the weight of the verdict. His expensive lawyer, the one my mother had sold her last pieces of jewelry to retain, put a hand on his shoulder and pushed him back into his chair, a gesture of grim resignation. The judge, a stern woman who had listened to the evidence without expression, looked down at him over her glasses, her gaze piercing. Mr. Vance, she said, her voice cutting through the stunned silence of the room. You have been found guilty of a grievous breach of trust. You not only defrauded your clients, whose hard-earned money you treated as your own, but you also committed fraud against your own daughter, using her good name and credit to finance your lies. You built a life on appearances, and you were willing to destroy anyone, including your own family, to maintain that illusion. My father just stared at his hands, defeated, his spirit utterly broken. Your arrogance is matched only by your recklessness. It is the opinion of this court that a significant sentence is required, not just as punishment, but as a deterrent to any who would so callously abuse their fiduciary duty. My mother was openly sobbing now, a harsh, ugly sound, her carefully constructed world in ruins. On the federal charges of bank fraud and embezzlement, I sentence you, Marcus Vance, to a term of 7 years in a federal penitentiary. 7 years. The words hit the room like a physical blow, a crushing weight. My father's head snapped up, his eyes wide with disbelief. This wasn't supposed to happen. He was Marcus Vance. Furthermore, the judge continued, her voice unyielding, full restitution will be paid to the Sterling family from any and all liquidated assets. The Vance Construction Company is officially bankrupt. No, my father whispered, as 2 marshals moved behind him, their presence a chilling reminder of his new reality. No, please. They pulled him to his feet. The sharp click of the handcuffs locking was the final, definitive sound, sealing his fate, his perfect life, his reputation, his company. All of it was over. As they led him away, he looked back, his eyes frantically searching the courtroom. He wasn't looking for his wife. He was looking for me. I met his gaze, my face unreadable, devoid of any emotion. Then I turned and looked away, severing the last thread of connection. The bank auctioned the house on a cold, rainy Tuesday. My mother, Brenda Vance, stood across the street, huddled under a cheap umbrella, watching. She wasn't allowed on the property. Strangers, bargain hunters, and her former neighbors walked through the grand foyer where she had hosted so many parties. They picked over her custom-made furniture, her crystal vases, her silk rugs, all of it tagged with bright yellow auction numbers. The bank was seizing everything to pay off the massive debts. The HELOC I had co-signed, and the liens from the clients he had defrauded. The house, the symbol of her entire life, was sold in under 10 minutes to a young tech couple for a fraction of what she believed it was worth. My mother stood there, her designer coat, one of the last things she owned, soaked through. She was 57 years old with no job skills, no husband, and no money. She pulled out her phone and called her golden child. "Lyra," she whispered, when the voicemail picked up, her voice cracking with desperation. "Lyra, please, darling. You have to call me. The bank, they took the house. I have nowhere to go. Please, Orion's family can help. Please call your mother." She waited for an hour on that rainy street corner. Lyra never called back. The new owners, the Hamiltons, had forbidden her from having any contact with her toxic and bankrupt family. Finally, my mother gave up. She walked to the bus stop, her hand shaking, and pulled a crumpled piece of paper from her pocket. It was the address of a third cousin she hadn't spoken to in 15 years, a woman who lived in a small, run-down apartment complex in a part of the city she had only ever driven through with her windows rolled up. As the bus pulled up, splashing gray water onto her shoes, my mother looked back one last time at the grand mansion. It was empty. The life she had protected at all costs was gone. She was just like her husband, a bankrupt fraud. Meanwhile, across town, in a different kind of prison, Lyra Hamilton sat in the perfect pale gray morning room of the Hamilton estate. The house was always silent, a hushed testament to old money and rigid control. She wore a cream-colored cashmere lounge set, an outfit she knew her mother-in-law Carolyn approved of. Caroline entered, her smile thin and polite, and placed a single cream-colored envelope on the table. "Good morning, Lyra, darling. Here is your weekly stipend." Lyra felt the familiar hot flush of shame. A stipend like a child. "Thank you, Caroline. You're very generous." "We are," Caroline agreed, her voice pleasant, but with an underlying steel. "We believe in taking care of family." She opened her day planner. "Now, about this week. The museum gala is on Thursday. I've had my stylist send over 3 gowns. Please select one by this afternoon." "Of course," Lyra murmured, her voice subdued. "And Orion mentioned you had lunch with one of your old friends, a Tiffany." Lyra's head snapped up, a flicker of fear in her eyes. "Yes, just a quick lunch." "I know where it was," Caroline said, not unkindly, but with an undeniable authority. "I simply want to remind you, darling, that our name is important. The Vance name is still sensitive. We'd prefer you socialize with people who understand our circle, the women from the junior league, for example. It's best to leave the past in the past, don't you think?" Caroline stood, her morning audience over. She paused at the door. "Oh, and Lyra, I do hope you understand how fortunate you are. We took a very large risk bringing you into this family when your father's disgrace became public. We saved you. We just expect a certain level of gratitude and discretion." Lyra just nodded, her throat tight, the words caught. "I am very grateful." "Of course you are, dear." The door closed with a soft, heavy click. Lyra sat alone in the silent, sun-filled room. She hadn't been rescued. She had been acquired. The fallout from the trial was swift, but not in the way I had expected. A month later, Mr. Sterling called me into his office. That familiar feeling of dread, of being called to the principal's office, crept back in. He gestured for me to sit. "Alara," he began, his voice serious. "I'm sure this last 6 months has been trying." "That's one word for it, sir," I said, a faint, weary smile touching my lips. He leaned forward, his gaze direct. "What you did, reporting your own father, that was one of the hardest things I've ever seen an employee do. It was also one of the most ethical. You put your legal duty and the bank's integrity above a personal and clearly painful family crisis." He paused, then slid a letter across the desk. "The board has reviewed your actions, and we are in unanimous agreement. We are promoting you to Vice President of Regulatory Compliance for the entire Southeast region. It comes with a significant raise. We need people with your kind of unshakable integrity and leadership." I stared at the letter. Vice President. It was a promotion I hadn't even dared to dream about for another 5 years. I had been so sure that the scandal, even with me as the victim, would taint my career. "Thank you, sir," I managed to say, my voice thick with emotion. I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything," he said with a rare smile, a genuine warmth in his eyes. "Just keep doing what you do. You've earned it." I walked out of his office with a new title, a new sense of purpose. But I knew there was one last piece of the old life I had to settle, one final thread to cut. The following Saturday, I stood at a high-end car dealership, the same one my father had written the bad check to. The white luxury car, which had been sitting in my apartment garage for 6 months as evidence, was finally cleared for sale by the court. "It's a beautiful car," the sales manager said, looking over the paperwork. "Barely driven. We can give you $81,500. $79," I said. He blinked. "What?" "I'll sell it to you for $79,000, the original loan amount, but I need the cashier's check made out to David and Sarah Sterling." The manager was confused, but he wasn't going to argue with a $2,000 discount. An hour later, I drove my own practical 4-year-old sedan to a quiet, tree-lined street in a modest but lovely brick ranch neighborhood. The Sterling's house. David Sterling answered the door, his face clouded with confusion when he saw me. "Ms. Vance," he said, not unkindly. "I'm Alara. We met briefly at the courthouse." "I know who you are," he said, his voice gentle. "What is this?" "This," I said, holding out the envelope, "is the money your family lost." I handed him the cashier's check for $79,000. He stared at it, his eyes widening in disbelief. I don't understand. The court ordered restitution from your father's assets. This is your name." "My father has no assets," I said simply, the words a stark reality. "The company is bankrupt. The house is gone. You will never see a dime from him. But he used my name, my credit, to start this entire fraud. The car he bought with my name was the first domino. This check is from the sale of that car." His wife, Sarah, had come to the door, her eyes filling with tears as she looked at the check, a wave of emotion washing over her. "But Alara, you don't owe us this. This wasn't your crime." "My father's crime cost you your savings," I said, my voice firm. "And it almost cost me my career. I can't let either of those things stand. My name was on the loan that started all of this. This is me balancing the books. It's compliance." Sarah stepped forward, and to my complete surprise, pulled me into a tight hug, her body trembling with emotion. "Thank you," she whispered, crying on my shoulder. "You have no idea what this means. This was our children's college fund." I stood there stiffly at first, then slowly returned the hug, a warmth spreading through me, a sense of rightness. This was it. This was the end. My father's debt was paid, at least the financial part, and for the first time since that horrible Christmas night, I felt completely, finally clean. 1 year later, Christmas Eve, the scene was not a sprawling, gaudy mansion. It was my new apartment, a chic, elegant 2-bedroom in Midtown, with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the lights of the park. The air wasn't thick with tension and the smell of expensive perfume. It was filled with the sound of soft jazz, the warm scent of roasted chicken and spiced wine, and something I hadn't heard at a family gathering in years: genuine, easy laughter. This was my Christmas, my real Christmas. Maya was laughing by the fireplace, telling a story to Letitia, my lawyer. Letitia, who had seen me at my most broken, was now one of my closest friends. She was here with her wife, her arm draped over her shoulder, looking completely relaxed, completely at home. Mr. Sterling, my boss from the bank, was standing by the kitchen island, deep in a surprisingly animated conversation with another man. "I'm just saying," Mr. Sterling laughed, a genuine, hearty sound. "I've never seen a compliance report written with such style." His conversation partner, David Sterling, smiled. "Well, I've never seen a compliance officer personally deliver an $80,000 check to my house, so I'd say she's full of surprises." That was perhaps the strangest, most wonderful part. After the trial, after my father's assets were seized, I knew the Sterlings wouldn't see a dime of their stolen escrow money for years, if ever. So I had the luxury car appraised and sold. It took 2 weeks. I took the $80,000 from the sale and I drove to their house. I didn't have to. It wasn't my debt. It wasn't my crime. But my name, my credit, my compliance had all been used to facilitate it. When I gave David Sterling the cashier's check, he just stared at it, speechless. His wife, Sarah, had burst into tears. Now they were in my apartment, part of my chosen family. David clapped my boss on the back. What she did, nobody does that anymore, man. She restored our faith. We wouldn't just be here tonight. We'd follow her into battle. Sarah came up and squeezed my arm, her eyes shining with gratitude. "He's right, Alara. You didn't just pay us back. You gave us our son's college fund back. You are family. Period." I smiled, my throat tight with emotion, a warmth spreading through my chest. "David, you're embarrassing me. Go drink your wine." I looked around the room at these people who had shown up for me. My real family. Letitia, who had fought for me. Maya, who had sheltered me. The Sterlings, who had forgiven me for my family's sins. And Mr. Sterling, who had trusted my integrity. On my mantelpiece, next to a vase of fresh flowers, sat a small pink ceramic piggy bank. I'd kept it, a reminder of what I was worth to them, and a reminder of the night I finally learned my own value. The buzzer for my apartment rang, jarring me from the moment, a sudden intrusion into my perfect peace. Maya looked at me, confused. "Are we expecting anyone else?" "No," I said, a cold, familiar feeling creeping back into my stomach. a premonition of the past returning. I walked to the intercom, my heart suddenly pounding. A frantic drumbeat. I pressed the talk button. "Hello?" A voice, thin and reedy, crackled through the speaker. A voice I hadn't heard in a year, yet instantly recognizable. Alara, honey, it's Mom. Please let me in. It's Christmas. I have nowhere else to go." I looked around the room at this family I had chosen. Maya, Letitia, the Sterlings. Their faces were bright with warmth and genuine affection, a stark contrast to the cold voice on the intercom. I raised my glass, about to make a toast, and then a knock. It wasn't a confident knock. It was soft, hesitant, almost scratching at the door, a desperate plea. The laughter in the room died down. Maya looked at me, her eyebrows raised, a silent question in her eyes. "Are we expecting anyone else?" "No," I said, a cold, familiar feeling creeping back into my stomach, a chill that seeped into my bones. I set my glass down. "I'll be right back." I walked to the entryway, my heels clicking on the hardwood floor, each step a deliberate choice. I looked through the peephole, and my heart stopped. I opened the door. It was Brenda, but it wasn't my mother, not the matriarch in fur-trimmed coats and diamonds. This was a different woman. She was thin, painfully so. Her hair, no longer perfectly highlighted, was a dull, mousy gray, plastered to her head from the rain. She was wearing a thin, worn-out coat that looked like it came from a thrift store, and she was shivering, her body trembling uncontrollably. She wasn't wearing any makeup, and the lines on her face, the ones of anger and entitlement I remembered so well, were now just deep, desperate creases of fear and exhaustion. She flinched when she saw me, as if expecting me to slam the door in her face, to banish her back into the cold. "Alara," she said, her voice a dry, broken croak that I barely recognized, a ghost of its former self. "Ilara, I'm so sorry to bother you. I saw the lights." I just stood there, blocking the doorway, a silent, unyielding barrier. I said nothing. Her false pride, what little remained, visibly crumbled, her eyes filled with tears, not the fake, performative sobs I'd seen before, but real, hot, shameful tears, a raw display of her brokenness. "Please," she whispered, her gaze dropping to the floor, unable to meet my eyes. "Please, Alara, I'm so cold. I haven't eaten today. My cousin, the one in the other part of the city, she kicked me out," my mother stammered, the words tumbling out in a desperate rush, a torrent of self-pity and despair. "She said I was a burden, that she was done listening to me complain. I've been staying at a shelter for the past 2 days. Ilara, a shelter." She finally looked up at me, her face a mask of abject misery, her eyes pleading. "I called Lyra. I called her 20 times. I went to her house, the Hamiltons. They have security. They wouldn't let me pass the gate. She blocked me. Ilara, your sister, she blocked me." She was sobbing now, her whole body shaking, a pathetic, broken figure. "I have nowhere else to go. It's Christmas. Please, I'm your mother." I stood there, my hand on the doorknob, just looking at her. The sounds from my apartment, the soft jazz, the clink of wine glasses, the warm, easy laughter of my friends, seemed to spill out onto the cold, wet doorstep, highlighting everything she was not, everything she had lost. She was a ghost, a thin, shivering ghost in a worn-out coat. This was the woman who had stood by, beaming, as I was handed a piggy bank. The woman who had screamed at me in Maya's apartment, accusing me of ruining her. The woman who in 30 years had never once picked me. "Alara," my mother whispered again, her voice cracking, a desperate final plea. "Please, it's Christmas. I have nowhere else to go. Lyra won't even answer my calls." I looked at this woman, my mother, and I felt nothing. No anger, no rage, not even pity. Just a profound, bone-deep exhaustion. I was just tired. Tired of the drama. Tired of the manipulation. Tired of being the emergency plan for a family that had treated me like a liability. "I am not your backup plan, Mom," I said. My voice wasn't cold. It wasn't warm. It was just neutral. It was the voice I used at the bank for a high-risk client. A voice of detached professionalism. "I am not the daughter you come to when the golden one, the one you actually chose. finally abandons you too. I am not the solution to the mess you and Dad and Lyra all made for yourselves. My mother flinched as if I had slapped her, her face contorting in pain. Alara, that's not... I'm your mother. I have nothing. I'm on the street. I know, I said, my voice unwavering, and I'm not going to let you freeze. I turned my back on her, leaving the apartment door open, a silent invitation, but with strict boundaries. I walked past Maya and Letitia, who were watching me with quiet, concerned eyes, their support a silent embrace. I walked into my dining room, past the happy, laughing Sterlings, my chosen family. I went to the beautifully set buffet table, the table I had paid for in the apartment I had earned. I picked up a heavy china plate. I filled it with roasted chicken. I added a scoop of sweet potato casserole and some roasted green beans. I picked up a heavy linen napkin and a set of real silverware. I walked back to the front door. My mother was still standing there, exactly where I had left her, shivering in the rain, looking like she was about to be struck, her eyes wide with desperate hope. She looked at the plate of food, her eyes wide and desperate, a primal hunger in their depths. I held it out to her. "It's cold outside," I said, my voice quiet but firm, leaving no room for misinterpretation. "You can come in. You can eat this one plate of food in the kitchen, not at the party." Her face crumpled, and she reached for the plate with a shaking hand, but I didn't let it go. I held it for a second longer, making her meet my eyes, making sure she understood the terms. "But you need to understand, Mom. This is not an invitation. This is not coming home. This is a meal. This is the last thing you will ever get from me because I am not you. I am not the kind of person who lets someone starve on their doorstep, even if that person is you." She just nodded, her eyes overflowing with shame, her spirit utterly broken. She took the plate. I stepped back and let her walk past me. She didn't look at my guests. She looked at no one. She went straight into the kitchen, just as I had told her, and stood by the counter, eating with her fingers, too broken to even ask for a chair. I let her finish. When the plate was clean, I walked back into the kitchen. I was holding a small piece of paper. "I can't fix your life, Mom," I said, as she wiped her mouth on the napkin, her movements slow and deliberate. "I'm not your compliance officer. I'm not your co-signer. I'm not your emergency fund. I'm not the person who cleans up your messes anymore." I held out the piece of paper. "This is the address and the phone number for the city mission. It's a women's shelter. It's clean. It's safe. And they have job training and placement programs. They can help you get back on your feet." My mother stared at the paper as if it were poison, her eyes wide with disbelief. "A shelter? You're sending your mother to a homeless shelter." "I am giving you a resource," I said, my voice hard for the first time, an unyielding resolve. "It's more than you ever gave me. I will not let you starve, Mom, but I will not let you back into my life. You, Dad, Lyra, you are all consequences of your own actions. You have to save yourself now." She looked from the paper to my face, searching for the daughter she had always been able to manipulate, the one who would crumble under her emotional blackmail. She found no one. She found only me, Alara. Slowly, her hand shaking, she took the piece of paper. I walked to my front door and opened it. I held it open, waiting. My mother walked past me, her shoulders slumped, her spirit defeated. She didn't say thank you. She didn't say goodbye. She just walked out into the cold night, clutching the piece of paper, a solitary figure disappearing into the darkness. I closed the door. I turned the deadbolt. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood for a long, silent second. I took one deep, final breath, releasing 30 years of pain, of expectation, of burden. Then I turned around. I walked back to my party, to the light and to the laughter, to the warmth of my chosen family. I picked up my wine glass. Maya came over and squeezed my hand. "Are you okay?" she whispered, her eyes filled with quiet concern. I looked at her, at my real family. I looked at the little pink piggy bank gleaming on my mantelpiece, a symbol of my journey. "I am," I said, and for the first time in my life, I truly was. My mother's eyes darted from the plate of food to the small piece of paper with the shelter's address, then back to my face. She was looking for a crack, a sign of weakness, a hint that the daughter she had always bullied was still in there somewhere, ready to break down and let her in. She found nothing. She saw no anger. She saw no pity. She just saw finality, an unyielding wall of resolve. Her hand, thin and shaking from the cold, slowly reached out and took the heavy china plate. Her knuckles were red, chapped from exposure. Then her other hand, just as unsteady, took the small piece of paper from my grasp. She didn't look at it. She just crumpled it into her fist, a desperate, futile gesture. She looked at me one last time, her mouth opening, as if to try one final argument, to utter one last curse or plea. But no sound came out. She knew it was useless. I was no longer her audience. I was no longer her victim. She turned without a word and shuffled away from the door, clutching the plate of food to her chest, a ghost disappearing into the rainy city night. I watched her go. I watched until her stooped shoulders disappeared into the darkness at the end of my walkway. Then slowly, I closed the door. The sound of the heavy deadbolt sliding into place was the loudest, most definitive sound I had ever heard. It was the sound of a vault closing. It was the sound of a prison door locking. But with me on the outside, it was the sound of done. I leaned my forehead against the cool, smooth wood of the door for one long, silent second. I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for 30 years. A deep, cleansing release. Then I turned around. The apartment was bright and warm, filled with the murmur of happy voices and the soft clink of glasses. My friends, my real family, were all there. They had respectfully given me space, but now they looked over, their faces filled with quiet, supportive concern. Maya, Letitia, Mr. Sterling, David, and Sarah. They weren't looking at me with pity. They were looking at me with respect, with love. I walked back into the living room, leaving the ghosts of my past on the cold doorstep. I went to the drink table and picked up my own wine glass. Letitia caught my eye from across the room and raised her glass slightly. A silent question. "Are you okay?" I raised my glass back, a small, genuine smile finally touching my lips. "I am." I held my glass up. The room quieted, my friends turning to me, their attention warm and focused. I just want to say thank you," I said, my voice clear and strong, filled with a profound gratitude. "Thank you all for being here, for being my family, for showing me what that word actually means." I looked around at each of them, my heart overflowing. It's not about blood. It's not about obligation. It's about showing up. It's about respect. It's about choosing each other. So, here's to a new Christmas. Here's to chosen families. To chosen families, David Sterling echoed, his voice full of emotion as he raised his glass high. "To Alara," Maya said, her eyes shining, a tear glistening. "To the strongest person I know." We all clinked glasses, the sound a joyful chime. As I took a sip, my gaze drifted to the mantelpiece above the fireplace. There, sitting in the center, gleaming in the warm light from the fire, was the pink ceramic piggy bank. I had kept it. I had placed it there as a trophy, a reminder. It wasn't a symbol of my humiliation anymore. It was a symbol of my liberation. It was the $80,000 mistake that had cost my father his freedom. It was the $100 insult that had finally given me mine. It was a reminder that my family had looked at me and decided I was worth $100 in a joke piggy bank, and I had looked at myself and decided I was worth more. I took another sip of wine, surrounded by the warmth and laughter of people who truly saw me. I was no longer the responsible daughter, the stable one, the scapegoat. I was just Alara, and for the first time in my life, that was more than enough. My friends, this journey, this unraveling of a lifetime of expectations and the forging of a new path, has been deeply personal, deeply spiritual. It's a story about finding your voice when you've been silenced, about choosing your truth when lies surround you, and about building a family not by blood, but by spirit. If any part of Alara's journey resonated with your own heart, if you've ever felt the quiet strength of your own worth, or if you've had to make a difficult choice to protect your peace, then I invite you to become a part of our growing family here. This channel is a space for stories that touch the soul, that remind us of our resilience, and that celebrate the power of choosing ourselves. So, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. And more importantly, I would be honored if you shared your own reflections in the comments below. What was a moment when you truly realized your own worth? What difficult choices have you made for your peace? Your stories, your wisdom, they enrich us all. And if there are other themes, other emotional journeys you'd like us to explore, please let me know. Together, we can illuminate the unseen threads of fate that connect us all.